Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Simpsons season overview. 'Tis I, Captain Logan. Joining me, as always, is my wonderful co-host, Austin, TheDayGhost.
Bonjour, everybody.
And also, this time we've got a special guest. It's my stepdad, the Geoff.
Hello.
Hello, Geoff. How you doing, man?
Hanging on.
Thanks for joining us. You know, ever since we started this show, I've wanted to have Geoff guest with us because I know that this is a show that he liked a lot. When I was growing up, we used to watch it together some, and we got to the point at our house where we weren't allowed to watch the show anymore, so I thought it would be fun to go back, because I figured it'd probably been a long time since Geoff had seen very much of this.
It has.
We watched a lot of reruns, and a lot of the reason I wanted to have you on this particular episode, besides the fact that just this is a really solid season, more than solid for a lot of people. For a lot of people, this is like the beloved, if not best season, the season that solidifies the golden years of this show. A lot of people say, you know, like 3 to 7 is the sweet spot for this show, maybe to 8, depending on who you talk to. And this is kind of the beginning of that. And where you just, you know, it goes off without a hitch. There's not really a bad episode. And I felt that way about 2 also, but especially this one. You know, there's not anything that's just, you know, absolutely terrible. But the main reason I wanted to have you here is because this was the season that I most remembered constantly playing on Fox reruns.
Yes. Yeah. This was the one that was on all the time. I used to have a bunch of this on VHS. Like 2 and 3.
Specifically those seasons. I didn't know if you... I was going to ask you if you knew this show very well, like, by season. At
Not
least,
really.
you know, the early stuff. Because like a lot of things, you know, it wasn't until you came along that I was watching The Tick, like, in order, like, and knew the episodes and seasons. The Simpsons, I never had that with. It was always just whatever was on TV, so I couldn't have begun to tell you what was in what season.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was. I remember when the series began, and I was watching TV then, but I still didn't follow the series to really know it by years.
So
It's just reruns.
I was kind of surprised while I was going back through this to find that I knew every episode except for like the last couple. Like, I don't think I had ever seen the Danny DeVito sequel.
That I had seen that one, but not nearly as many times as some of the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
Some
Yeah,
of
when they
some-
play the Danny DeVito episodes, it's almost always the first one.
And the one with Milhouse's girlfriend, I don't think I had ever seen either.
That's an episode that I knew well.
Oh, yeah?
It may have been on one of my tapes.
But it was one of those things where kind of like sometimes when you go back to like kids movie that you saw growing up but you haven't seen in 20 years, you're like, I don't know if I ever saw that, and then you watch it and you realize like every scene has lines of dialogue that you recognize, and you're like anticipating things, so simultaneously you're like, I don't know what's about to happen. And you're like, wait, yes I do. I had that a lot with this season. It was like, a lot of these I've seen a bunch of times. Like, of course, the one with Timmy in the well, like I'd seen a million. Like that was always on.
And that's a classic. The first episode that still exists was actually strange to me.
Oh, the one where Lisa goes to Washington. Yeah,
I have not seen that.
And that was a classic on the level of the one with the well to me. Like that was on TV a lot. I feel like I saw that several times.
I think that's the only one.
Weird.
Yeah, I feel like I mainly know that episode from like looking at the actual seasons as opposed to reruns.
Okay. The scene I distinctly remember most from when I was a kid is when she goes to the Lincoln Memorial.
Oh yeah.
And like everybody's crowded around it, and so she has to settle for Jefferson, and
she goes to
he's
Jefferson.
like, "Oh, you're here because there was no room at the Lincoln Memorial, huh?" And yeah, that's great. Geoff, would you tell us a little bit about your background with this show? Because, of course, you're a little bit older than me and a lot older than Austin. So, like you said, you were, watching stuff when this was on. And I guess my first question for you is, did you know about The Simpsons from the Tracy Ullman Show? Like, were you aware of that before the actual show started?
Only the vaguestly. That's a word now. So shall it be. Only very, very vaguely. I was aware of Matt Groening's work. I had read some of his comics.
Oh, really?
And I have a couple of his books from way back before.
Did you read the one that he was doing, like when The Simpsons started? Like the reason he made The Simpsons into a cartoon instead of a strip?
No.
There's something from hell or something.
Life in Hell, yeah.
Life in Hell, yeah.
But yeah, I have Life in Hell and Love is Hell.
Okay, cool.
So. Okay, cool. Yeah, I've never read any of that stuff, but I'm interested to try it out.
They're grading at his best, and at his pre-Simpson best, at least.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew those at the time. This brand new TV network had come into being.
Yeah.
Which was exciting because there were only 3. You had ABC, CBS, NBC, and then a UHF station that didn't come in very well and was independent. And the UHF station that didn't come in very well became the Fox station in the area. And there was a 4th network suddenly, and they had 2 shows really. I mean, they must have had more shows, but there were 2 shows that I had any awareness of, and one of them was Married with Children, and the other was The Simpsons.
I forgot Married with Children was on that network. Yeah,
those were the big horses that got the Fox network running.
Right. And Austin and I have talked about this before, but of course, a lot of the reason that they were able to get away with a lot of stuff they were doing on that show, and that they weren't super censored, and and then the popularity of it is the reason that it stayed that way.
And The Simpsons came on, and they weren't sure exactly whether it was going to roll, and they were trying hard to. They meaning Fox, they meaning the chat boxes and TV Guide,
yeah,
which used to be a print medium object. In those days, we had printed mediums, but analysts always say, "Well, this will be like the Flintstones, which was an animated cartoon."
Well, and cartoons also used to be hand drawn, and they were 2-dimensional, and yeah,
they used to be better.
There's no computers at all.
They used to be better.
And I watched it then, and I really enjoyed it. I thought this was really better than I had expected it to be. I was always surprised, as I was again when rewatching this now. The image is always going to be, this is going to be the subversive underculture kind of show. But there's so much wholesome heart kind of stuff in it.
Yeah.
I mean, they never go very far to the darkness. And there's always these redeeming moments.
I was going to say, even when they kind of meet that, there's redemption. You got that episode here where Marge is like, Homer, you are a bad father. Like, he's not going to stay that way.
I mean, Lisa Goes to Washington is the perfect example of that. I never in a million years saw coming that they would even pretend to have people pretend to resolve any of that. I watched that episode thinking, okay, Lisa's going to go home and learn that, yes, politicians are corrupt scumbags, and government, you can't be trusted for anything.
And it's going to crush her soul forever, and she's going to turn into Marge's sisters or something.
And she'll go gothic, and then it'll be fine. But people went goth in those days.
It was really just all the people who were making 2D drawn animation. Yeah. And printing things in TV Guide.
And shopping at Hot Topic.
Right.
All the Tim Burton fans.
But, no.
Okay, you also had Claymation. I forgot about that.
That is true. Mm-hmm. But it always surprised me that the way they would come around and go wholesome again.
Yeah.
And even just plain warm-hearted. And
so is that the thing back then that would kind of keep you watching it? Because otherwise it would just be cynical and soul-crushing and...
I wouldn't have stayed with it if it did not have that. I wouldn't have stayed with it if it was all that, the way other people might have expected a cartoon show to become.
Yeah.
But I think the mix helped keep it intriguing, and that you didn't know from the outset where the balance was going to fall.
Yeah.
Between the affirmative and the negative, so to speak.
So
Yeah, because it's never so dark or too like schmaltzy. Like it always finds that line
Yeah.
for the most part.
well, that might be the main thing that makes a lot of fans feel like these are the golden years of it.
Yeah.
Because I think that balance does get tipped one way or the other after that, right?
Yeah. Over time, every show that changes in one direction or the other, but it always changes.
Especially if something goes on too long. Because we're not just talking about
Usually
cartoons.
not in a good
That
direction.
happens with dramas and everything, yeah.
It's more common for shows, at least that I've seen, for the initial phase to get that balance right, and then for a later phase to think, oh, we need to evolve and change and screw it up.
Well, and very often the problem is self-awareness. And one of the most impressive things about this show is that it has that very early because it gets immediately popular. It's an overnight success. And as they're leaning into that, they somehow are not losing what they were in the first place, and maybe weirdly kind of becoming, if that makes any sense at all, like more of what they are. Well, like they're able to have self-referential humor and make fun of themselves, and there's a lot of that this season. And
The
talk
larger
about
scale Flanderization.
yeah, and talk about the ways in which like the show itself is really popular, the meta commentary and all of that. But they're not. I think the key is they're not worried about like retaining viewership and making everybody happy. They're not scared of like people leaving. They're not worried about accessibility. So they just keep doing the thing they're doing while simultaneously going, yeah, we're popular now. We know that. I mean, like the most gratuitous thing they do, at least by this season, is just constant celebrity guest stars.
Yeah.
And we can talk about whether or not that's a problem, but that's the biggest change as they get more popular. Is that was we've talked about this, but that was a rule they apparently had early on, that like we weren't going to do that. Austin talked about this. We're going to have celebrities sometimes come in, but they're going to voice different characters, not themselves. This season, every other episode has
somebody recognizable.
Yeah, Daryl Strawberry and yeah.
Well, it's kind of interesting because we do kind of draw a line here in the season where actors come in and they play characters, while musicians and athletes will come in and play themselves, with the obvious exception being Michael Jackson, who's Michael Jackson, but not really.
I thought it was. I mean, isn't that Michael Jackson?
Yeah, no, he looks like him.
He's a dead ringer.
Exactly.
No, I hadn't thought about that distinction though. I guess you're right.
Draw that good.
Which gets really weird in later seasons because, and Austin, maybe you can tell me, I don't know at what point they start actually bringing in actors playing, themselves, but it'll get weird later because you have a lot of parodies of characters from movies and actors like in later seasons, while simultaneously you also have real actors. And that always gets really weird. Like going back to these seasons and seeing McBain, and then going to the movie and they have President Schwarzenegger. That's really weird, right?
Yeah.
It's like, how do both of those things exist in the same universe? One is clearly the other, just straight up, like.
Yeah, that thing in the movie always felt to me like they were like, we want this to be accessible to like new people, so we don't want to like drop in our made up Arnold character. We're gonna make it more obvious to newer people. But I'm not entirely sure. Obviously,
that's a kind of phenomenon that is just inherent in crossing between TV and a movie.
Well, you say that, but I think the TV show is already doing some of that stuff, and I just don't know those later seasons because I haven't seen a lot of that to know if I'm, totally right about this. But I think part of the problem is just like politics and entertainment crossing, right? Because this show early on, I'm pretty sure it still has because we have Barbara Bush this season. Like whoever is president right now is president in the show at least. By this season, so once you get into like real politicians who were actors and stuff, I mean, I realize Ronald Reagan was, but you know what I mean. Like with more of that happening later, I don't know how you even deal with that in a thing like this. But I mean, so you're right. Like maybe that's because it's the movie, but I suspect there's more of that going on in the TV show.
There may be.
Yeah, well,
by the time the movie
floodgates
came
are
out, I
opening.
was no longer seeing the show, so none of those seasons of the TV show have I seen.
Yeah, me neither. And that was according to a lot of people that were watching at that point, and also people who weren't but assumed it was bad. The movie was as good as it had been in a really long time, and I like that movie a lot. I think it's great, but I don't know if you've seen it.
I've seen the movie. It was fun.
It's fun.
Yeah, I like the movie.
How do you not like a thing that drowns Green Day in the first 5 minutes? It's great. I don't hate Green Day or anything, but it's so funny. It's
kind
great.
of a South Park moment.
And
right
Spider
there.
Pig is great. And yeah, no, that's true. Well, and South Park has to be influential on later seasons of the show, and that's a thing we've talked about a little bit here too. Is because
These things are gonna cross fertilize each other.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
They share an environment. They share a language in some sense. They're going to influence each other.
So before we get more into this actual season, let me ask you a couple more questions just about your background. So I want to know who your favorite character always was, if you
I
have
don't know
one.
that I really had one.
Yeah.
I mean, I always liked Lisa. I always liked Mo. I always liked Barney.
Yeah. Barney's got a couple of great moments this season.
I,
One of my runners-up for best moments is a Barney moment.
Burns and Smithers together, I always enjoyed. Like together, individually, yeah, but when they were
That's a good
when
point.
they were bouncing off each other, that always made me laugh.
Burns by himself is more fun than Smithers by himself.
Yes,
but
it
I
is.
think I agree with that.
Because Smithers is, as a character, a guy with no personality except his service to Burns.
Yeah. So what do you do with him
So-
when he's by himself?
When no one else is on screen, he's invisible.
Well, I guess you put him in a video game and you have him be the main bad guy and he kidnaps Maggie. I guess is what you do with him. I don't know.
I mean, I think there's one episode where Smithers is involved, qua Smithers, rather than qua Burns.
Oh, Stephen Murphy just pegged the runner-up I was talking about. Wow, okay. I'll bring that up later.
Of course, that's
Steven.
great.
Yeah, that's in my list. Wow. And then the other question I was going to ask you is, when did you drop off?
About 1996, probably.
So around when a lot of people did, yeah, because that's 7
And
or 8.
that was because my life changed.
Sure.
I moved to a different city. I started graduate school, and there just really was not time. And I didn't always have cable,
Sure.
which meant I didn't always have any form of television.
Okay, so
I
you didn't
have
drop
anything with television.
you didn't drop off because the quality waned. You just
Yeah.
weren't watching stuff.
My life changed in a way that left me not free to just watch TV shows I was interested in anymore.
Sure.
And I never was again, really.
Yeah. It is surreal to think that the show starts like losing some fans or being to a lot of people not as good around that time. That like that's it's been that many years now.
Yeah.
Like around the time that you met and married my mom is when the show stops being The Simpsons for a lot of people. That's crazy to think that.
That's weird. For me, it's totally coincidental.
Oh sure, yeah. But it's just bizarre that it's been 20 years now, 20 plus years now. Show's on season 32.
They're still on.
Yeah, it's going into 33.
Oh, did they finish 32? Okay.
When in the years when I was watching,
And we're
The
gonna try to
Simpsons,
do them all, and I think we'll see a big viewership drop as we go along as well. At the point where we're at like 27, like 50 people are watching this show, but we're gonna try. We're gonna try to get there.
at the point in time when I was watching The Simpsons,
Yeah.
the only TV shows that had anything like this, a 20 plus year run,
News shows.
not counting
Sure. Yeah.
news, because that's a different kind of show, were Doctor Who and one of those soaps, I think General Hospital. Like there had maybe one other, but you didn't have TV shows that had more than 3-4 seasons. That just didn't exist. 7 seasons was, golly, a long run.
There were a few sitcoms that got somewhere between 10 and 12, but you had Cheers and you had Frasier and you had things like that. I mean, obviously Frasier's up through into the late 90s into the 2000s, but even I don't know, Bonanza was on for a long time. There's a few things
Some
that
of those
had runs
westerns
like
got
that, but
some pretty long runs, but
Well, of course, we
32.
have some Cheers people working on this show too.
I had forgotten about that, which explains the big
It
sequence.
may have something to do with that episode being as good as it was.
But a lot of that was also just the referencing of that show,
Pitt,
which is super
the Elder.
which is super clever. Yeah. Everybody's gonna bring that up before I have a chance to. Okay, that was the thing I was talking about. Like Lord Palmerton.
Lord Palmerston!
I laughed as hard, so I watched through this twice, and I laughed as hard the second time as I did the first time. It's always funny. All the Moe stuff this season is hysterical.
Yeah.
Every time we go into Moe's, like, strap yourself in, because it's always funny.
That is the truth.
I have
just
Oh yeah,
Moe's
Moe's one of
episode.
those characters they've nailed at this point.
Yes. I have another Moe's runner-up that I don't think anybody's going to call, okay? So,
Cool.
hopefully. Anyway. Okay, Austin, where do you want to start, man? Oh, I'm sorry. Before we do that, let me just mention everybody live. First of all, thanks for watching. If you're if you're tuning in right now, as we're broadcasting, as we always do when we get to the end of the show, we're going to do a commentary on an episode chosen by you guys. We're going to watch one of these and talk about it as we are seeing it. And I'm pretty sure which one of those is going to win, unless Austin's been watching it for me this time. Is it still a landslide, or is it getting closer?
Here, I'll take a quick look again, but it was.
If you have not had a chance to vote yet, or you didn't know about this,
No, it's still a landslide.
the poll is, well, it may not even matter then, but you can still vote.
Don't feel obligated to vote for the thing that's already winning, unless you really want to vote for that.
Yeah, if
Yeah,
you want to try to
exactly.
turn the tides, now is your chance. But I'm going to go grab the link to the poll and put it in the description here, because I forgot to do that. But you can also
Yeah,
just
and
go
I
to
can't.
our social media on YouTube and find it there. We did a post about it. But anyway, I guess I won't mention what is winning right now, but we know what we're probably going to be watching. But anyway, we'll do that right at the end. And yeah, Austin, where should we start, man? What is the big thing you want to talk about with the season?
Well, do you guys want to get straight into the season, or should we address the elephant in the room first?
Might as well, since you made it your background.
Since it's the beginning of the season.
Yeah, since it's the first
I forgot it was the
episode.
first episode of the season. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the episode with the famous Michael Jackson episode, which is now completely out of circulation, which is not a Disney thing, like a lot of people think it is. It was actually before the buyout, which sucks. It's a really great episode. Like, it's a shame that they did that, but just is what it is, I guess.
So if it's not a Disney decision, then why are they not able to show it? Like, do they not even have the rights
Well, the
to it now?
Simpsons
Is that what it
creators
is, or-
completely, like the Simpsons people were like, we're taking this out of circulation. We don't want people to see this anymore. Like, I don't think they're putting it on DVDs if they're making any new DVDs for that.
Groening and Brooks.
Yeah.
And they
It's
issued
not
public statements
reruns.
individually
Oh, I didn't know about that.
saying this is why we're uncomfortable with this still being out there
Okay.
because of the situation.
That makes me more conflicted than I was about that decision. Because, like, it's the guys that own it deciding they don't want to keep putting it out. Like, we can argue about whether or not it should be seen, but if it's, I don't know, if it's their decision as opposed to just a company trying to, like, save their own butts or whatever, I feel better about that.
If a creator does not have the right to withdraw their own creation, what kind of world do we have?
Yeah, certainly. And we can, like, we could argue with Groening if we wanted to about, like, why he might be wrong about that. But that is his decision at the end of the day. Like, and I guess what I'm saying is I like that it's that is their decision.
Yeah, that's all we would want. That,
Yeah, no, that is
If
true.
it makes them uncomfortable, I mean,
that their work wasn't silenced by an outside third party because of this pressure or that pressure. That
yeah, and I mean, I don't want to look contradictory or whatever, because I have complained before about things like, George Lucas feeling the need to change his own work and then, like, get rid of the earlier versions as if they never happened. I think this is a different situation than that, because it's not like I don't know. It's not like trying to get rid of history as much as it is just like we're not comfortable with having that out there. I guess it's a little different. I don't know.
I mean, the creator should be the person to make those decisions. That doesn't mean that every creator is always going to make good decisions.
The right decision, yeah, sure.
Yeah, no, I agree with you guys. Like, it should be their decision if that has to be the case. But I also don't like that they did that. But I mean,
I would be very happy.
I don't
if-
think I do either, but I'm more sympathetic, I guess.
Yeah.
I'd be very happy if a day came along when they felt okay about giving it back to us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was going to say, like, I could see people looking for, other episodes that they might think should make them just as uncomfortable. I can't think of any good examples, but where it's like, okay, well, if you have, a particular standard where you have to get rid of this, then now don't you have to go in and, like, anybody that we're uncomfortable with that has done, uncouth things or allegedly uncouth things, do you have to also get rid of those? Like I think having Michael Jackson in the episode is maybe different than, to them, I'm sure, than, like, referencing certain, because there's a bunch of references to Bill Cosby this season. Like, do we have to get rid of the episodes in which he was referenced? You know what I mean?
According to, from the statement that Groening made, at least from what I was able to read about it, Groening said that there were some reports that Michael Jackson had actually been using this episode, like showing it to kids that he was having in, that he allegedly is supposed to have been trying to victimize.
See, that's a horse of a different color.
That
okay.
it played a direct role, apparently, allegedly, in the things allegedly that went on.
That becomes an isolated case then,
so that's,
as opposed to here's the standard we have to attempt to stick to, because you can't begin to be consistent if it's just, well, here's a person that people think did these terrible things that is gone now, will never be tried for or tried again for it, that was never convicted for anything.
Yeah. It wasn't just a hot button, better get away from it.
Yeah.
And
although it does make you...
Anyone who you'd have to have never really known any of Matt Groening's work to think that he would think that way.
Well, yeah, of course. Sure. He seems like the most anti-censorship kind of person, politically correct person.
Yeah, he's not going to be that guy.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It is interesting to me.
I really love that episode, though. I miss it.
Because I didn't know that.
It is great, yeah.
Yeah, we can talk about that in a second. I didn't get a chance to watch it this time around because I didn't have any way to. I used to have the DVDs for the season. I sold them a long time ago because I'm a moron, and I wish I had hung on to them. But I didn't realize that they had all the special features that they have, or I would have kept them. I should have looked. I didn't know. I didn't know that there was a commentary on every episode. Grr. So that's annoying. And I didn't. I can't predict the future, so I had no idea that this was gonna, evaporate and we wouldn't be able to see it.
Plus, realistically, there's no guarantee that later on Disney Plus won't turn around and pick some other episodes of the show that they don't like.
Yeah, but I'm more I feel better about the whole situation knowing that they didn't drop it just because I thought it was because of that documentary that came out with the the people who claimed to have been affected by Michael Jackson. Knowing that it's not that, there aren't any other examples, I don't think, of just that kind of direct censorship from Disney Plus. They have disclaimers on stuff, and there's a couple like I think Disney things specifically that they've not put up that they didn't have in circulation anyway, like Song of the South and stuff like that. But so I don't know. I'd like to think that maybe they won't, because there's not precedent for it yet. But who knows?
I would like them not to.
But who knows? Yeah.
But
Dustin Hoffman got Me Too'd, so maybe we'll lose Lisa Substitute next.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of that. I mean,
at least in this case, it was to do with the episode's direct role in.
That's a completely isolated kind of situation.
Very different from just we had a guest star and it turns out that person was an awful person, or is accused of having been an awful person and doing awful things.
Because, like I said, there's no being consistent about that. And how much art would you lose?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, all of Wagner's operas.
Well, of course. Of course.
Had a galactic impact on Western music ever since. And yet, he was among the most awful people to walk the earth.
Wagner, who is indirectly, or maybe more directly than we even realized, responsible for stuff Hitler did. Like,
a real cheerleader for all of those ideas.
It's a great point. Yeah.
And that
Geoff, by the way, is a composer and a music teacher, and that's
And the classical music world still wrestles with this, and that's why, for example, you will not hear any of Wagner's music played by the Israel Philharmonic Orchestra.
I mean, that makes sense.
Can't blame them. But
I was just thinking though, because you talked about music, it is kind of interesting though that they took this episode down, but you can still go onto like iTunes and buy "Do the Bartman," which was also made by Michael Jackson.
yeah.
Like that was a part, like it was around the same time. He was like, "I want to make a #1 hit song for Bart."
But I think Geoff just kind of explained
this
why
is why.
that might
Yeah.
be, though.
No, for sure.
I didn't
I'm
realize
sure
that,
was
but
part of it too. Like, yeah.
But then riddle me this: if it was Groening and the folks that made the show that decided that they were too uncomfortable with having it out there, why did they allow it on the DVDs in the first place?
Well, that decision they made after the documentary came out.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And it was information that came out because of that documentary.
So information they didn't have, yeah.
So that they didn't know before.
Interesting.
And they said that when we found out this stuff had been going on, allegedly, and that our show had this much of a role in what happened,
allegedly, then
that was what made our mind up. That was what made our minds up.
Okay.
So
well, anyway, Austin, you want to talk about that for a minute, because we did not get a chance to watch that episode, so we'll fill in where we can. But
talking like this just made people happy.
Yeah, it's a very classic episode. It's really funny. The setup at the start with like Homer wears a pink shirt to work, so that makes him insane, is really great. The stuff with Michael Jackson's really good, and the kind of like the stuff between Bart and Lisa in that episode, I think, is genuinely pretty heartwarming. And of course, another thing with that is Michael Jackson didn't actually sing his role in that episode, and there's conflicting stuff with that. Some people say it was because he wanted to like trick his brothers into thinking it was actually him when it wasn't, and other people say it was because Sony blocked it. I'm not entirely sure. I could see it going either way.
Both of those are really plausible explanations.
I think what confused everybody too was that, if memory serves, he's not. I just can't remember. Isn't he not credited?
Yeah. So, not only was he not credited, they weren't allowed to market the episode on him. On him, yeah.
So that threw everybody. So, like, people thought that it was a voice actor pretending to be Michael Jackson in the first place, and then it got even more complicated, because once you knew what was really going on, his voice is in there, but he's not singing. So it's even weirder than you thought it was.
And since the plot of the episode hinges on this guy who says he's Michael Jackson,
yeah,
or is acting like he thinks he is, what better way to mate with that than to have Michael Jackson's actual participation in the episode be completely mysterious?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that just makes it funnier. Like, once you know that, it's more amusing, because it's like this guy who clearly is not Michael Jackson. Like, there's no possible way that guy actually is, because he doesn't. He's heavy set. He's not the right age. Like
he's yellow.
Yeah, well, sure. He's got 4 fingers. Like, yeah, nothing about him would you believe that he's really Michael Jackson. But then he's actually voiced by him.
Hair, though.
But then his that's true. But then his singing voice sounds really close. So it's just it's hilarious. Everything about that's great.
There's a good part in the commentary too where they're talking about like how the guy doesn't look like Michael Jackson, and it's like somebody holds up the Thriller album, and I think it's Dan Castellaneta just goes, "That's okay, Michael Jackson doesn't look like that anymore either."
That's really funny. It was like a 4th phase.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. Stephen Murphy, he was the last person to use a false name in the credits. Every guest star after that had to be credited by their real name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the thing they talk about in the commentary. They were like, that's it. Like, if you want to be on the show, you have to, like, come out that this is you. So Michael Jackson was the last one, because of course Dustin Hoffman was like that too.
Right.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we talked about them.
Yeah.
Yet another one.
So it's really funny that Michael Jackson is sort of voicing a person that is not actually him, because we were just talking earlier about how apparently in that season, like, they didn't do that with actors, but they did do it with musicians, and he is a musician, but they're doing the actor thing with him.
Yeah, he's kind of the one exception. Yeah. Although,
but he was also the most famous musician alive, which puts him in a different category. Yeah,
sort of an exceptional guy, no matter how you look at it.
Sure. Because he's one of those people that crossed over. Like, he was sort of an actor, not really, but...
part of that, too, is this is also a holdover episode from Season 2, so that's probably a reason for that as well.
Are there any others like that, or is it just that one?
Last time I said there was one holdover from Season 2, and I wanted to see if you could guess it. When rewatching this, I found out there was two, and this is one of them. Obviously, I'm not going to make you try to guess this because you guys didn't watch this episode. But yes, there is one.
Is the other one Lisa Goes to Washington?
Nope.
Okay, because that one had some animation stuff that made me think it could have been second season, and there was another one, too. I got to check my notes.
It sure felt like a thumb out of the hand in this season.
There was another.
The one it is
episode
the big telling is animation.
Yeah. I don't know. I would have to look for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Bart the Murderer was the other one I was thinking of.
No, that's not it either.
Yeah. Well, and just because it was the one I was thinking of doesn't mean that it will be the one that was the holdover. But yeah, you can go ahead and tell us.
Well, if you want to guess, it's up to you. Like, I have more to say about the
go ahead and
Michael Jackson.
Go ahead and talk some more about that then, because I just need to bring up an episode list apart from my notes.
So one of the funny things with that is that when Michael Jackson was given the script, he didn't actually have very many like things he wanted to change. But one of the big ones was they couldn't reference Prince. There was a joke about Prince, and he had it changed to Elvis because he didn't want Prince's name in the episode.
Oh, weird.
Which is especially funny because they almost made a sequel episode for this with Prince.
You were telling us that before we started broadcasting. I had never heard that story. That's really funny.
Well, and Michael Jackson did marry Elvis at one point.
Was that like a rumor thing? What are you talking
about?
Well,
Elvis's daughter.
That's right.
Oh.
That's almost the same thing.
I just mean, was it a rumor that they were one and the same?
Michael Jackson married Elvis.
Oh.
And then he traded for Elvis's daughter. That's the big
I'm going to make
thing.
one more guess for the holdover thing. My last guess is Like Father, Like Clown.
No.
Okay, which one is it?
It's When Flanders Failed.
Is it really?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Go back to that episode with that knowledge and just like pay attention to the animation. It's really sloppy in places.
That was the other thing I was going to suggest, but I wanted to stop guessing because it was going to get irritating at some point. There's only 24 possibilities. But that may have been the episode I made the note about, and I just couldn't find it.
Yeah, that one, interestingly, was kind of a season 1 type thing where they got the animation back from that episode and they were like, whoa, we can't air this. We got to fix it.
That's really weird that would still be happening.
Mm-hmm.
Strange. Was there anything else you wanted to say about the Michael Jackson episode before we move on?
I don't think so. No, I think that's everything.
Geoff, there's a parallel or a kind of a metaphor I wanted to make with this. This struck me as kind of like the Teamy G flood for the Simpsons this season. Because this is the like really mainstream. This is the point where this show was really popular, but this is the point where everybody's watching this show, and the people that are really into this, a lot of the references and episodes they would call back to would be from this season. This is the like,
popularity is fully established, and at the same time, they have hit a creative stride.
Yeah, where the first two feel like they lead up to where 3 is the absolute culmination, just like the first 2 Teamy G albums get into Flood. Yeah, this whole season I kept thinking like this is Flood.
And the other two, the first two albums,
Except that it comes out in 1991 and not 1990. But I
Pink
mean, it's
Album and
really
Lincoln map
close.
pretty well to the first two seasons.
They do.
Also, yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Oh, thanks.
It's good. That might be gigantic.
Well, yeah, I think with this season, because obviously one thing is that we're switching showrunners this season to Al Jean and Mike Reiss, who were writers on the first two. But while season 2 is really great, it's still setting things up and it's getting everything into place, while this season can just come in and just hit a home run. And not only that, but a lot of the episodes this season are sequels to episodes from the first two seasons.
Yes.
Yeah, so
in
it's
episode
kind of,
formulas,
in a way,
I had to write that as a formula, just sequels, because we hadn't really done that before. But there's like 4 of them, and 2 of them are sequels to the same episode.
Well, one of them is a sequel to 2 separate episodes where they like take 2 of them and then merge them into one sequel episode.
Oh wait, what is that?
It's Black Widower. It is a sequel to the Sideshow Bob Bart stuff and a sequel to Principal Charming with the Selma love stuff.
Okay, sure, but one of them is a direct sequel and story stuff, and the other one is more of like a thematic follow-up. Yeah. But yes, because of course I was definitely thinking that. But it wasn't one of those Selma and the other one was Patty? Or is that Selma both times?
It's Selma both times.
It's Selma is looking for love, and then it like swaps on them where Principal Skinner falls in love with Patty instead.
Okay, but then it's Selma who actually falls in love the second time. Okay, so I'm right. It's each of them gets a different relationship.
Mm-hmm. But the Selma Patty relationship thing is the thing that keeps coming
Selma
up.
Had celibacy
thrust upon right. Yes. But yeah, there's 2 sequels to the Sideshow Bob episode, because we have direct references to the events in that episode from first season in the episode with Krusty and his father, and then of course the other direct follow up is the Danny DeVito episode with Unky Herb.
Yeah.
Yeah, which apparently I was reading. Hank Azaria said that Danny DeVito was much less enthusiastic about doing that episode, and very much had an attitude of like, yeah, let's get this over and done with. And I always wondered why he never came back. I'm assuming it's because of that.
That's disappointing. Did he just not have a good experience the first time around, or didn't like the script, or?
Well, from what I've read, like, he really liked doing that first episode, and then I guess maybe he felt like the second one was more obligatory. I don't know.
We can go ahead and get into that right now since we're there if you want to, because I'm curious to know your thoughts on it, since you earlier said you thought that it was kind of a drop-off.
Yeah, So it worked out that the first episode in season 3 now, and the last episode are the 2 that I hated.
Oh, really? You didn't like Mr. Lisa Goes to
the
Washington?
least love for either of those as episodes. The Herb comeback, I could not get past the preachiness of it.
Oh, interesting.
I could not get past the American exceptional dream sort of politics of it.
Okay.
And just nothing in it was funny enough to get me to make up for the sort of anybody who's a hobo is just doesn't have enough initiative to go make himself rich again out of nothing like this guy. I bought that. I'm never going to enjoy an episode where that's the theme.
You know, that's fair. I didn't think of that. Sometimes I think it's difficult to land on, and maybe everybody's going to be different on this, to land on either side of satire versus like making some kind of a point with the show. Sometimes it's hard to say if... because with that, I think I read it more in the moment, but like, I mean, you make a really good case. While I was watching it, I think I was reading it more as it's making fun of a typical like sitcom formulaic story where like we do those kinds of stories a lot, particularly in like the 80s materialism era where it's like all you need is an idea and a couple of cents and you can go do anything and there's nothing keeping you down, which of course it's just not really true. Even back then it wasn't really true, and
in all fairness,
it certainly isn't now.
One thing this show has always done a really fine job of or a really clever job of, is keeping you on a knife edge between, are we preaching this or satirizing
Or are we
this?
making fun of it? Yeah.
And oftentimes, watching season 3, oftentimes I found myself wondering which side of the knife I was on.
But I never feel like, even if I'm wondering that...
this was one where I felt like I had fallen off the knife.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. One of the things I really appreciate about the early seasons of the show, of course, and I probably talked about this, is it doesn't feel like it ever has a political agenda, even if it is maybe leaning a little bit more toward one idea or another. It doesn't seem like it's trying to like exclude anybody or leave anybody out. Like, and it seems like it's really conscious of that. Yeah. So I can't think of a great example from this season, but if it starts to get like really heavy into like one particular idea, it generally will show you the other side of it.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel like a show that's made like distinctly by conservatives or distinctly by liberals. Like, it just feels like a show.
Considering their network,
I appreciate
is
that.
Amazing.
Yeah, no, it is.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny because I've read before that the show at one point was considered the most liberal show on TV.
Yeah,
which I've always found funny because I think they make fun of both sides.
They do. Yep. Which is one of the things I really respect about it. Because it basically just says, like, isn't life silly? And, you know, like,
which,
at the end of the day, everybody, you know, you find dumb people everywhere. I think sometimes that's kind of the point of the show, but yeah.
Which, if you've already decided that's a liberal message, then yes, it is.
Sure. Yeah, okay.
I mean, that's easy to do, and certainly people do it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it's just it's got a lot of just kind of authority figures ridiculous.
You're never gonna go broke on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's equally making fun
of... That's a bottomless well.
It's equally making fun of incompetent government and incompetent business, like, all at the same time. And
turns out the incompetence was the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly, and you can see it from kind of all the family members where you get like, government, like work, school, just like all these different kind of authorities, and look how silly it is, yeah.
And family.
And family, yeah.
As much as this show seems to work hard to reinforce the family value in some ways, they are not off the hook.
Well, yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So let's talk more generally about some of our main characters. We talked a lot, Austin, in season 2 about how probably the least, weird way, the least fully formed character, just in hindsight, at that point of the family members anyway, is Marge, because she has in that second season a little bit of that rebellious spirit, especially in the flashback episode with her in college, and she's starting to kind of lose that as time goes on. Do you going back and rewatching the season 3, Austin? Do you still have that? Because I took that point of yours coming into the season, and I almost wished you hadn't said it, because I really missed that. I think a lot more than I would have if I hadn't gone into it without thinking about that. Originally, I mean, when we talked about season 2, I was really worried going into 3 that I would be this like weird outlier where I would find myself really preferring 2 because of some of the characterization like that, and also just it erring more on the side of being kind of, I don't want to say a drama and a comedy at the same time, of course, but like being a little bit more character driven and maybe having a little bit more heart than the show will have a little bit later. I think overall this is a better season entertainment wise. Yeah. I'm actually standing by that. Season 2 is still more of what I wish this show was moving forward. I guess I just wanted to tack that point on real quick. But Austin, how do you feel about Marge rewatching that season? And are there any other characters that you think are kind of going a different direction now?
Yeah, Marge is kind of a nothing character in the season. Like, even because she gets her one kind of episode with Homer alone, and it's just everybody is a jerk to Marge. Let's give her a break. As opposed to last season, which, like, you get the prequel episode where she's very rebellious. You get her taking down Mr. Burns at least once, maybe twice.
You get her taking down
Itchy and Scratchy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the big thing is that, that was where Marge was, and then they raised Lisa up there, and then said, okay, we can't have both of them be that way, so they brought Marge down, and now Lisa's that character.
I think that was a mistake.
Yeah, I wish they had not gone that direction with her. But on the other hand, as we get more of these flashback episodes and we see more of her family, the new version of her character makes a lot of sense.
It does. I just wish that we hadn't
It's
had
just
to...
sad.
Yeah, because you're right. It doesn't even feel like retconning. It just feels like where we're at with her now is the more like reasonable and realistic way to take it. But she was so much more interesting before, and we get we kind of border on making her too typical of a housewife. But then again, it's that satire versus storytelling problem where, but that's also the point, because we want to satirize, what kind of sucks about being, a regular housewife in the 90s. And so that's what the episode that you just brought up, Austin, like, of course, that's what that's all about, like the rigors of staying at home and taking care of a house and your family not appreciating you and all of that. Like, we do need to handle all of that when we're dealing with a dysfunctional family in a sitcom, but...
And this show is half in the 90s and half in the 50s. The Simpsons are...
That's a good point.
Kind of a modern family, and yet also kind of a classic TV family.
Yeah.
And that's part of what they're about. And sometimes explicitly, sometimes implicitly.
No, you're right, because the original premise kind of watches like dysfunctional Leave It to Beaver, doesn't it?
Yeah, this is Ward and June and Beaver and his brother, whose name escapes me right now.
Because I've never seen that show more than once or twice, but
what you talking about, Willis? No, that's different.
Well, I was gonna say John Boy, and I was like, wait, that's another show.
Is that
that is also different.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that makes sense with The Simpsons. It's the famous Bush speech.
But you see Marge in this season, and she's beat down. She had dreams and aspirations, and that has all been crushed and squeezed out of her by her oppressive family, by her awful mother, by her awful sisters, and then by her husband and kids.
That's reinforced too much by Homer because he's not proactive.
I think there's an episode. Oh, it's this season where there's the most dramatic Marge is a failure now, where she's talking to Lisa and flashing back to Lisa about how she dreamed of being an astronaut.
Yeah.
And here's a story that feels like it's going to go in a positive direction, and then fails in the most feeble way possible. And then she goes away, and Lisa is completely disillusioned.
It's a surprisingly crushing moment, especially because it's such a funny scene that, like, I don't think I appreciated the weight of it until the second time I watched it.
Yeah, it was, and that was not the Marge that we had gotten so far. This is a certification of the new Marge is dumb, just like Homer, just in a different way.
Which again actually makes more sense.
It's plausible, it's credible, it has the feel of reality to it, and yet it's still sad.
And then in a weird way, it has more legs and less legs all at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Because it's harder to tell really compelling stories with her as the POV protagonist, but at the same time, there's more jokes you can make about it.
Right. And it leaves her a more flexible template to use in the stories of other characters, like Bart and Lisa and Homer.
I do think moving forward, they will bump her up a bit from where she is here. Like, we will get stuff like her trying to take down the monorail, or her becoming a cop, and stuff like that for her Spotlight episodes.
Man.
But I don't think she ever gets as I don't want to say developed, but like kind of as she is in season 2.
I wanted to mention that knowing about the Marge become a cop thing, which is one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah.
It's great.
Going back to this, I'd forgotten about the episodes
to wave
that right.
way.
Ah! I was surprised going back to this because I'd forgotten about this episode and seeing the episode where Bart is the hall monitor.
Oh yeah.
Because
that's the same episode.
There's this that we were just talking about. I couldn't remember for a minute in the moment what episode that flashback with the astronaut thing happened. You're right, because it's Lisa being told that she's never going to be a great jazz musician at the same time as Bart is learning about an aptitude that he never thought about that is like really positive to him.
Yeah.
So we have these mirroring character arcs. Where one ends up kind of being more like another parent than the other one, but they only fully parallel if you think about the Marge will later become a cop episode. That is fascinating to me, because there's not...
It came from somewhere.
There's not really any way... Yeah, or if it didn't, it's a nice happy accident, and I'm glad it's there, because I can point to that now, because otherwise, it kind of watches like... there's almost an element missing or something, because you kind of squarely would expect it to be like Bart is becoming more like Lisa and Lisa is becoming more like Bart. And it's really only going one direction, because as Lisa is being told that she's never going to amount to anything really, and she's just going to be her mother, she starts becoming rebellious and acting just like Bart, which is interesting because, like Austin talked about in a previous episode, she basically just was a clone of Bart in the Tracy Ullman shorts, and they've gotten her really far away from that, and now we've got a character reason for why she goes back to that for a second, which is interesting. So you would expect that maybe Bart would just start acting like Lisa, or being some like version of his mother now, right? Because she's being more like her father, because Bart is more like her father, because he's or could be later because like he's really rebellious, but also not proactive, just like his father is. But it's really not like that. But then when you have the cop thing later, it's like maybe that is what's going on. So I don't know. That is fascinating to me.
Yeah, I didn't think about the Marge cop thing in parallel to that, but yeah, that is great.
Because Bart basically just becomes a cop in that.
Yeah.
And interesting that he starts finding authority appealing, like becoming authority.
I got
appealing.
my first taste of power, and I like it.
Yeah, because how often does that happen with rebellious figures?
I will tell you,
right, like
about the kids I went to school with. If you looked at the percentage of them that were most likely to become street thugs, and the percentage of them that were most likely to enroll in police academy, they were the same group.
Yeah. Which is kind of scary.
It is.
And I think that's what that episode was getting at. And it's surprisingly nuanced and really realistic.
Bart becoming the hall monitor and being an authoritarian figure is not actually reversing his character the way Lisa's track is.
It's not.
It's just being more himself.
It's weirdly profound.
Yeah, like you get stuff like he's willing to break the rules. Like they can't. Skinner says they can't search like the students' lockers. It's against like whatever code. And Bart's like, forget your code. They just do it.
Which
anyway.
is hilarious because, by the way, that's not true. Like, there's
What
no
have they done for
warrant.
us lately?
You don't have to get a warrant to search kids' lockers. That's not a thing. Maybe it is in that world, but not
No,
the
they
one
gave
we
us a
live
cool like Axel F montage, so
Yeah.
it was worth it.
And if cartoons are allowed to have simplified versions of, say, human anatomy,
Yeah.
they can have a simplified constitution too.
Well, sure.
Yeah, cartoons don't actually say anything. They're just like funny images to make people laugh.
That's in.
It's just a bunch of stuff that
That's
happens.
in the very first episode, or I guess the second episode. Okay, somebody in the comments earlier asked us to talk about Saturdays of Thunder, and I wanted to go ahead and bring that up because that's not an episode that I really had a whole lot to say about. So since somebody wanted us to chat about that, I wanted to go ahead and do that for them real quick. That's the one with the soapbox racer.
Yep, which
Close
is based
to
off a
Raven.
throwaway
What
line.
a shot.
Which is now the second reference to that in this show. I'm sorry, Austin, what were you saying?
I said, which is based off of a throwaway line last season, where Bart says to Lisa, "Let's go work on a soapbox car or whatever." I think it's in the Marge versus Itchy and Scratchy episode.
Oh yeah,
I had forgotten about that. Maybe you mentioned that in our previous show. Awesome. What do you think of that episode?
I like that episode. It's not like it's kind of the perfect middle of the road this season episode. I think like it's pretty good. It's not like the best one. It's not the worst one. But it's a solid episode, and Bill Cosby saves the day.
Yeah, the whole thing about his book and all that is pretty funny.
When I watched these and took my notes, the only things I wrote down for this episode were the chalkboard gag.
Yeah, I didn't write hardly anything down either, but I did write that down.
The infomercial at the beginning.
The infomercial is great.
Because Dr. Nick is hilarious, and the state of Kansas Jell-O mold is something we all need.
Is that the one where he keeps going $29.95?
Yeah, I think it is. You're gonna have to do better than that. How can I possibly do better than $29.95? Find a way.
Oh, and then Homer. This is my favorite bit of that. One of my favorite bits of that episode. When I just remember this, when Homer calls to get whatever is being advertised in that commercial. Do you have any left? We got a couple. It's like a whole warehouse full. Is that episode? Or is that a different episode? Because now that I'm thinking about it, maybe that's the birthday episode.
I think so. Well, things
are running together. I rewatched too much of this today.
Where he calls the TV to order the subliminal weight loss tape.
No, this is earlier than that.
The vocabulary one instead. I think this is earlier than that.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
But no, I think the one I'm talking about might be the one with the well, because he must just keep calling.
Yeah, that's the one you're talking about.
That's the one I'm talking. Okay, it's
a
different episode.
Left? Yeah, a couple.
Yeah, a couple. Because that's when he buys the microphone.
Yeah.
Microphone.
One of the few times where Homer actually makes an okay decision and didn't have a bad idea, but it backfires on him anyway. Where Marge is like, no, that's a fine present. You just shouldn't yell into it so much so that there's feedback. I can't hear you with all the distortion.
That episode also has awesome setup and payoff, just even with like the label maker that they set up at the start. It's great.
Yeah. When Lisa calls
brilliant.
Bart on that is a great moment in that episode. But this one with the soapbox racers, I liked Martin being so dramatic.
Oh yeah,
I like Martin's sense of.
He gets put in the
Martin
hospital,
gets the weirdest
somebody
line
has to drive my car. You can drive my car.
Yeah, well, it's the best car for Bart in Hit and Run. It's like the fastest car. It's awesome.
I like the bit.
I was no good at steering that.
I like the bit where the guy running the soapbox derby is like, well, you're not supposed to get any help from your father, but you could have at least maybe asked a question or two.
Yeah.
Like his dad basically built it, and he's like, you could have gotten a little bit of help.
I like that they keep talking about Bart's like hero in soapbox derbies, and he shows up at the end. And he's like a 6-year-old.
The only other thing I wrote down about that episode, I did the same thing you did, Geoff. You wouldn't be able to tell what the plot of that episode was by my notes. I guess a lot of that didn't stick with me, but I like the bit where he calls the Fatherhood Institute, and the hold music is Cats in the Cradle.
Yeah.
Because it just makes him feel like really crappy for not spending time with his son. It's so good.
I think
that's a running joke this season.
That's on my list for the pop culture references.
That was on mine too. But no, you're right. There's a bunch of that kind of thing.
Yeah, like in the Michael Jackson episode, Marge calls the insane asylum that Homer's in, and it's the song called "Crazy" that plays. It's the whole music, and I think it's like "Baby Come Back" when Homer calls.
When
I wrote that one too. You loses Maggie, and it's "Baby Come Back." Yeah.
It's okay.
And every time he's got like every time he's crying or he's got a tear or something,
yeah.
That's great, but that's a big rant. I'm sure you'll get to this, Austin, when we get to formulas, but a big motif this season, of course, is like child neglect, and especially, and there was already some of that before, but we have episode and episode about it this season with Homer, particularly just generally not thinking about or spending any time with his kids, and we do it with Bart and Lisa almost equally.
Marge, the dog doesn't count as a kid.
Oh, that's true. He even does it with Maggie. He doesn't even remember that he has a third kid. That's a great scene. Especially because it takes him so long to realize he has another kid. It's so good.
Well, yeah, it's like there's an episode later on where they lose the kids and they're in court for it, and they ask Homer about his kids or something, and he's like, yeah, like I love Homer and Bart and Lisa, and they're like, what about Margaret? And he's like, who the hell's that? Lady, you got the wrong file.
Toilet paper mounted in incorrect underhanded fashion.
A couple super chats from Tom real quick to read. Let me do that before we get on to some other episodes. And unless there's anything else you guys want to talk about with the soapbox racer, that one doesn't stick with me super well.
Yeah, like I said, it's just kind of like a perfectly fine episode.
A well-respected man.
Tom, $5 super chat. Thanks, buddy. Listening while I mow. He's out mowing. I hope you don't have a flaming mow.
That would be bad.
Thought the show was tomorrow. Have fun, you crazy kids. Yeah, originally it was going to be, and we had to schedule it for today because our schedules didn't line up. So sorry.
I just remembered a scene from Saturdays with Thunder that's awesome.
Yeah.
Which is when Martin crashes and he's on fire.
Oh, yeah.
And the firefighters come and they put out the soapbox racer and not him.
Yeah, he's still running. He probably had to spend more time in the hospital because of that. Hey, there's another general topic we should get to, Austin, because we keep checking in.
Fire.
No, not that. We keep checking in. Well, sort of. It's related to that. We keep checking in on this subject, Austin. So let's go ahead and do that now. The question of believability and realism in the physical in a cartoon. So the first season was a lot more careful about it than the second season. Do you think that we're moving even a lot farther away from that this season, where it's possible for characters to get harmed or maimed or something, and then we just kind of forget about it? Because there are more examples of it, I think, this season than there were in two. So, are we getting too far away from that, do you think?
That will require.
I feel like we're naturally going that way.
Okay.
As the show goes on, at least so far. For example, we're still
that was one of the
really
big ones I was going to mention. Is he puts his? It's one of the classic scenes from the season. He puts his foot in a nail. This is when he's building it's the one with the swear jar, and he's building a doghouse, and he puts his foot through a nail, and he's got one of his great lines, which I've got on my list, and I'll talk about that later. And then Marge and the rest of the family shows up, and then right after that, he forgets that he's just gotten really seriously injured, and it never comes up again. He's just fine standing through the rest of that scene.
Well, Martin on fire.
At least he goes to the hospital.
But also
for a broken arm.
Out of the fact that
does he not have burns?
The soapbox racer, veering off the track and hitting the wall and bursting into flames.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. That would not set on fire.
Which they do that. There's another episode, and I don't remember what season it was, where the really, really old blind guy is driving his little car, and something stupid happens.
Oh, the mole guy?
And he ends up rolling off into the ditch and coming to a stop in the ditch. Whoa, that was terrifying. Burst into flames.
Yeah, they do that a few times with Mole Man. Like there's one where he's driving a truck and he's moving Edgar Allan Poe's house, and it starts to go over the ditch, and as it goes, it bursts into flames.
It's just flames are the result of all highway or vehicle mishaps.
The other one that comes to mind where we just set a vehicle ablaze really easily was Spinal Tap, and they may be dead. You don't know.
That actually made sense, though.
Yeah, no, it did. That's true. But that was a case. That was almost the opposite case, where it's they don't survive too easily. I don't know if they're still alive.
We see them later on in the bus.
We do? No, it's their bus that blows up.
Oh, that's right. And then the bus blows
Yeah.
up.
No, they might be dead.
That's true. They might.
You don't know. They might have just killed Spinal Tap, and considering it's a fictitious band, they can totally get away with it. Like,
I mean, their drummers already burst into flames every time they perform. So.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that whole thing. Yeah.
Well, the funniest part
we
with
blinded, and then we might have just killed the entire band. With the laser beam.
Yeah.
That's
The funniest thing with that is the writers were like, they don't have a good enough send-off in this episode. Let's just have them explode.
Okay, so let me tell you.
That was a nice town. Yeah, I think we really rocked it.
Good night, Springden. There will be no encore.
All the British stuff in that episode is really great. Like how there might be someone who rocks harder.
We heard there
We
was
don't
someone we heard they knew how to rock in Shelbyville, but nobody rocks like Springfield.
Out on Route 401.
That was hilarious. That was the funniest thing in Saturdays of Thunder.
That's not in Saturdays of Thunder, but that's another episode where it's really easy to just remember that bit and not much in the rest of the episode, because that's not a great episode. Like the Otto stuff, I don't know if it's handled right, and I don't know. Austin, you want to talk about that for a second since we're there? And how the creators ultimately felt about that episode, because I think your mentioning that clouded how I watched it on a second viewing, because I started thinking, they might be right that this was a misstep with Otto, and I didn't think it was a great episode to begin with, but...
So first I'll say with that, the concert thing with Spinal Tap, go back and watch that sequence again, with the knowledge that they drew everybody in the crowd with bangs so they didn't have to draw their eyes.
Are they at least moving?
Yeah, they're moving, but they all have hair down to here. You'll get maybe 2 people in the crowd with eyes, and it's once you know about it, you can never unsee it.
And then you think they needed a scene where with people on the way in with a little stand say, "Spinal Tap accessory fake bangs, $2."
Yeah.
Also, Fox were mad about that because they were like, "We spent enough money. You could have got a real band."
Yeah.
Well, didn't you say that they picked that because somebody on staff worked on Spinal Tap?
That's my assumption because Harry Shearer is one of the members of Spinal Tap.
Yeah, he's one of the
main
guys.
Cast members.
I gotta be honest with you, that whole concert sequence is great, and the interview before it is really funny. I just think it's a weird choice. The idea of canonicizing Spinal Tap in Simpsons is just weird in my brain. It just kind of makes my brain explode. The idea that that's a real band in The Simpsons, I can't get my head around it. I don't know. Because then you have to start, and I don't mean to make too big of a deal out of continuity with the show, because we've talked about how it's a floating continuity, and it doesn't always, stick to its guns with everything, and it's loose about it.
Whatever's
and that's
funnier is what'll happen.
Yeah. And that's cool for the most part, but, call me a prude when it comes to this kind of thing, but it does kind of bother me a little bit when that we've got, all of these fictitious real-world stuff that gets brought up all the time, and then I guess in this universe, Spinal Tap was not a movie, or at least was not a fictitious movie, but, everything else that was fictitious was. It's weird in my head. I don't know.
A fictitious movie about a fictitious band, but pretending to be a real documentary about a real band, except of course it's not about it. The band it's about is not real.
Right. So I guess that means in The
Simpsons,
Simpsons,
real or is they not real is part of what Spinal Tap is about in the first place.
Well, of course,
their existence is a mockery. Therefore, mocking their existence works.
Kind of. I see your point there, but I have a hard time with it. I guess I have to just assume that in The Simpsons that was a real documentary. That was a documentary about a real band. It's the only way that makes any sense.
Well, yeah. Just like in real life.
Okay. Whatever. Tom had another $5 super chat I should read for him real quick. He just got done mowing. What is your guys' favorite episode this season? Sorry if this is already answered. But we'll get to that at the end.
Did you mow your neighbor's lawn in your wife's best dress?
Did you go back and rewatch all of 1 and 2 also, or is it just fresh in your mind because we talked about it?
Those are the episodes I know the best.
Okay.
I sat down to watch season 3, and I thought, I wonder if I'll see that one. Before I did that, I watched your commentary on 2, And by the end of that, I realized that if you asked me to name any Simpsons episode that I remembered that I really liked, turns out they were almost all season 2.
Oh, okay. I wish we'd had you there for that one then.
I feel like, yeah, I wish I was there.
But of course, there's a bunch of stuff this season too.
But then I felt that way after this one too. So
I mean, I remember when I was a kid watching Flaming Moe's with you.
Yep.
Like I know there's a couple of classics for you this season as well. So that's good.
Yeah, as a fan of Moe, this is a perfect season to get in because like we got Moe nailed down this season.
This has Moe's shining hour in it.
So real quick, the big going back to a topic we were doing just a couple minutes ago.
The auto thing.
Oh, sorry. Yes, we can do that, and then I'm going to go back even further. Yeah,
such as it is.
So yeah, you're right. Like sort of, kind of, but I think it could have been better. Yeah, how do you feel about about that whole thing?
Yeah, like as a story, it's not amazing or anything. I think there's really funny moments in that episode. Like I really love when they're at the DMV. And Otto's like, your father's right, I am a bum. And he's like, he called you a sponge. A sponge?
This looks like something a sponge would do.
But yeah, the writers felt with that episode that they kind of ruined Otto's character in that, they put him through this kind of like hard thing he's got to get over. And he ultimately doesn't. He's just kind of gifted victory at the end.
Yeah.
And it kind of just set Otto in this place where he just kind of bumbles around and he's just a walking stoner joke.
I don't know
and
how
that was kind of all he'd ever be.
I don't know how
Which
you tell
is what
stories
I
with him.
thought he was before. So.
Yeah.
That's true, but if you're going to give him a spotlight, you'd almost I would kind of like him to go a little bit further than that. I think he could have had a character arc where he gets just a tad more responsible. I mean, I realize this is a show where we're not like really evolving characters in that way very much, where like you'd have to be a member of the Simpsons to have a chance at like really changing and growing at all, and even then, very often pretty stagnant characters. But I guess the problem with giving him a spotlight is he ends up just being a younger, like druggier version of Homer, right?
Yeah, kind of.
Like when you already have a character that's all about being passive and like not trying to go after things, and he's just kind of a pushover,
being a failure at life.
Yeah, it's really hard to bring in another one of those, like just another screw up character, and also where a lot of the jokes are, look how much of an idiot this guy is. He's arguably dumber than Homer, though.
He's the thing Homer will become.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
So he's like, see, and I think that's the problem for me is it's too depressing. It's like he's Homer after Marge divorces him, and he never gets to see the kids anymore, and he goes and lives in a dumpster. That whole thing though about the dumpster brand is great. Yeah. It's really funny.
These are top of the line.
I realized retroactively that character, and I say retroactively because this comes later, that character is just Jack Black from School of Rock.
Oh, sure.
Like, he's just exactly that same character. Except he actually gets that responsibility arc in that movie, and Otto doesn't get that. But he's Jack Black at the beginning of that movie.
Yeah, I'll buy that.
Yeah, I can see that. I didn't think about that, but basically.
All my favorite moments in that episode are the ones that don't involve Otto mostly.
Oh yeah,
like when Homer talks to Bart about giving up the guitar. That's okay, son. If something's hard, you should give up.
We do that several times this season where it'll be a terrible message and Homer or someone else is being an awful role model, but it plays the really typical like sitcom music, like the drippy-eyed sitcom music. I love that. It's great.
It's like all the schmaltz over the Homer's worst philosophy moments.
My biggest question that episode was why doesn't Otto need an amp?
That's true.
He plays his guitar. He plays that guitar that Bart gets in the bus, and it sounds like it's got an amp attached to it.
That's his stoner power right there.
Exactly. He's got the power of Metallica. It flows through his veins.
You don't even have to plug it into anything. Down, down, down.
I stay in
and then he just does Freebird for 10 minutes.
Yep. tomorrow.
Well, it's funny that you mention that you said your favorite moments of that episode aren't even auto moments, because it's about 10 minutes before we even get to him, which is... This is another thing we talked about before, and now that we're hip deep into this, we need to discuss this. This season really gets us into the mode of the unpredictable direction of an episode, where it starts seeming like it's about one thing, and that one thing is actually just establishing a device or a MacGuffin or a situation to get us into what the episode is really going to be about thematically.
Some weird little tangent out of that is going to turn out to be the A-plot.
And but it doesn't ultimately end up feeling like those minutes were wasted or pointless or not even what the episode is about. You just didn't realize that you were in setup territory, because it feels like we get right into a premise, but we don't. Because a lot of the episodes that do that are also really well plotted, and there's a bunch of setup and payoff. For, like, the episode where the dog needs surgery...
Yeah.
It's 10 minutes before you realize that that's what's going on, but you see the dog really sick in a couple of scenes before it's even brought up that he's in bad shape, where it seems like it's just a joke, like he just gets in front of the TV while they're watching sports or something, and like something is really wrong with him, but it seems like it's just a joke. You don't realize that they're actually establishing what the episode's about.
Yeah. I was thinking of the Twirl Kings for that as well.
The one out? Oh!
The yo-yo.
The yo-yo, yes. Yeah, that stops being about yo-yos. In fact, right here in the moment, I can't remember what the rest of the episode's about.
That's Bart the Lover.
That's the Krabappel episode.
That's right. Oh, yes, and I really hate yo-yos.
Yeah.
I love that
I question the educational merit.
I love that Krabappel is so desperate for love that she can't see right through those letters, where clearly you would have to already know her to say a lot of the things that Bart's saying in those letters. But I also like that everything he comes up with comes from somewhere.
Yeah.
It's great.
Like watching those old movies.
And yeah, and like the butt that won't quit thing. I think it's really funny that comes from Homer's one love letter, and he's like, he was drunk and he just wrote it while he was on vacation to some brewery, but then then Bart just pulled that out of it, and like it's not a good line, and it's awful. But then when you get to the very end of the episode, the most romantic line in the like letting you down easy letter that the whole family writes does come from Homer.
I am gay.
but that's not what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
But you get that like really nice heartfelt line that Homer suddenly comes up with at the end of that. I love all of that. That was really well plotted, I thought.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's got that like you said, that awesome Homer letter where it's like $5.
That's the old sparkle.
It's great.
I love that vision of them all crammed into the van.
That actually was really depressing to me for whatever reason. I was very saddened by that. With like all the
those guys must get all the girls.
Yeah, the yo-yo people that get thrown in the back of the van.
Shoved in the back of the
but then it pays off wonderfully later on when Marge goes, name one person that's made a fortune doing yo-yo tricks.
And this episode aired about the time that the Smothers Brothers had their comeback show for like 3 months.
Oh, interesting.
And one of the segments they did on the 2 or 3 episodes that they made of that was Tommy Smothers as the Yo-Yo Man.
Oh.
So there actually was like a 5 minutes of fame for yo-yo tricks.
Well, and it's funny, like specifically for yo-yo tricks, but this is right before or just during some kind of stunt acts get really popular, like Stomp and stuff like that.
Sure.
So it's not yo-yo tricks, but it's close to that kind of thing. Or like Blue Man Group, or
yeah.
Need some Blue Man yo-yos.
That reminds me, there are a couple of jokes or lines that we keep bringing back. Maybe not running things, but we're just, for whatever reason, we come to it twice in the season. That was weird to me. Milli Vanilli, at least twice.
Yeah.
We make jokes about.
That shows a lot of restraint
Because everybody's making fun of that at that time.
because they were so
Is that
so
sort of,
mockable.
is that sort of like if a Simpsons season now could get away with only mentioning Trump twice in 2020?
Yeah.
Because you know it didn't. Like, there's no way it did that. But I'm just saying it's the equivalent of that, right? Because that's what everybody in late night was making fun of in 1991.
Yeah, I mean there was nothing else to talk about that year.
I mean, heck, even this season couldn't get away with not mentioning Trump at least once. He comes up even in this season.
Well, neither can the news. So.
Yeah. And then another thing.
Donald Trump did not make his money off yo-yo tricks. We know that.
Oh yeah, that was actually from that. Wow, I can't believe I did
Yes.
that. Yeah, that was the reference. Another thing that we cannot stop saying for whatever reason, and almost as if we forgot we wrote it, twice. I just remembered this. Twice the line "There's a party in my mouth and everyone's invited" comes up. Why? Why twice?
That came from somewhere.
They're referencing something.
Yeah, I'm blanking on where it was, but it was like a
Yeah, I'm not
commercial
sure.
for something that you saw a lot in the late '80s.
So real quick, because I forgot to mention it earlier, this was the thing I wanted to go back to. Probably half an hour later now, but there is so we were talking a little bit about trying to decide whether or not we're being realistic enough with the previous seasons, and I think we all pretty much agree that it's kind of gradually going the direction it's going. But I don't like it when we're not consistent about it in the same episode. And the bit that kind of bugged me. With that is when Lenny gets plastic surgery, and then there's a commercial, and then he doesn't have that anymore.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why we did that.
That always makes me laugh.
That's a bridge too far for me.
Throwaway gag that was truly thrown away.
It was but the problem is it's too thrown away because it's not a throwaway gag. If it was in one scene, sure, but he hangs on to it for a little bit. Because it's there to pay off when Marge is like, is that the episode where the Germans take over, or
Yeah, because their stock gains value, and Bart dreams of drinking from a cement mixer full of frosty
chocolate milkshakes, right?
Frosty chocolate milkshakes.
And then they're afraid that the Germans are going to come in and take their jobs, and of course, naturally, the plan is way better with the Germans in charge, and they should have stayed there. And Burns' office gets turned into a daycare center. I love all that stuff. I think that was really funny. But yeah,
You're from the land of chocolate.
Yeah, and of course that's
The land of chocolate.
big classic bits from that season. Austin was telling me that there's a whole episode or a whole level of the Simpsons video game that's based on just that sequence.
Oh, fun!
Because when they made the movie,
it's the first level.
They did a game called The Simpsons the Game that was like loosely based on the movie, but also went to the show a lot, and that's apparently one of the levels they did.
It's not based on the movie at all.
Is it not?
They
thought
they were
some of
just
that was
at
in
the
there.
same time.
Oh,
No, it's
cool.
completely separate.
I just assumed it must have been because it was called The Simpsons the Game, like that was The Simpsons the movie. Yeah, that's funny.
No.
I played the tutorial when it came out, and then I didn't get a chance to play any farther than that. The tutorial's great because it's making fun of how sucky video game tutorials are, but I never got past that. So
If something's hard, it's not worth doing.
I'm excited to finally get to the video game shows. We're planning on doing some of the at least 8 and 16-bit era between 3 and 4. So the next thing we want to talk about on this show is some of the Simpsons video games from the mid-90s, which will be both fun and painful because most of them aren't good, but they have a lot of fun references and things. But at least we'll get to cover the arcade game, and it's wonderful. So that's good. And by the way, Arcade 1-Up just announced that they are going to put one out, and so I have a main machine that plays it, but you'll actually be able to get the 4-player Arcade 1-Up version of the Simpsons arcade game, and it has a trackball on it, and they've included Simpsons Bowling, which is the only time that's ever been put out anywhere. So that's pretty cool. It seemed like they were reaching there to try to come up with one more game to put on that system, because Arcade 1-Up never puts out a game that just has one thing on it. It's like, what else do we do with The Simpsons? So that's
They should
really
have put
amusing
out
to me.
Simpsons Wrestling, because that game looks hilarious.
But was that an arcade game?
I'm not sure.
I don't think it was. I think it was just a
Probably
console
not,
game.
Yeah, no, probably not.
But anyway, okay, what else should we chat about before we get to our categories, Austin?
Let's see.
Obviously,
What do I
everything hasn't come up yet, but I think a lot more. I think we'll get really close to at least mentioning 100% of the episodes when we get into categories. We've done at least half, and we haven't talked at all about some of the best, which will be a lot of fun when we get to our categories.
One thing I thought was interesting.
Purple. Those are different references, but I just think it's really funny that those both came to my brain at once. Anyway, I'm sorry. What were you saying?
I think it's pretty interesting that we get 3 Bart prank calls this season, and they're all subversions of the prank calls.
Yes.
Like, they've kind of realized that, like, okay, we can't just keep doing that same mold. We got to change it up.
And that doesn't go anything like where you think it's going to when Bart does the crank call, and then he has to actually go there, and like you think that's going to turn out horribly, and then Moe's just an idiot and never figures out that it's him, and then he's singing Teddy Bear Picnic on the tables and stuff. It's great.
Yeah, and you get the one with Hugh Jass where he's actually there and he answers the call.
That's my favorite. Yeah. I love that one, and he's just like, "Oh, we'll have a nice day." Like, this was a crank call that backfired. What a nice little boy.
And then of course you get the Treehouse of Horror one where it's like, I'm looking for like I have a stinky butt and I smell and like.
For the Treehouse of Horror.
Yeah, when everybody has to do what Bart says. Yeah, and it's just like this,
it's
like,
good that you
paragraph.
Made that awful thing.
Yeah. It's good that Bart did that.
I'm just gonna sneak up to him and beat him with this chair.
That's their best horror parody so far, because it's so close to that Twilight Zone episode. That's great.
Charlie X.
Yeah, and I've never seen
Charlie
that
X,
episode, but it's a good episode.
Yeah, I even wrote that down, but there is a Twilight Zone episode that does that, and then Charlie X is just also that Twilight Zone episode. Just as creepy, if not creepier, though, because the Twilight Zone episode does not have somebody with a missing face, and that freaks me out every time. Even to this day, man, I can't deal with that scene. It's freaky.
That was pretty disturbing.
That's freaky deaky, man.
Oh, I should say, with that Treehouse of Horror, I had to watch that in French class, like in French.
Really?
Yeah, it was awful.
Oh, why was it awful? Just the voices were bad, or?
No, because I don't know French.
Yeah. That'd be hilarious.
Just like I just had to watch that episode and be like,
I want to see it in German.
Yeah. I want to see the German episode in German.
Yeah, that'd be great. That was 10 minutes ago. I like the bit in that where Smithers is doing the typical who is that Homer Simpson sir, and then he starts saying the sector, but he's saying the numbers in German. That's great.
Yes, one of your Chairmeisters from Sector is even Gruber, 7G.
What do you guys think of the Treehouse episode? Because I think the bit we were just talking about is great, and the rest of it is just okay.
I'm giving it a solid meh.
Yeah. The Twilight Zone episode part is awesome, though, and then I think it's bookended with mediocreness.
The other ones, I don't even remember.
It's easy to forget them. I did for a minute too. Yeah, the monkey paw.
The monkey's paw
is at the beginning, and then the last one
spun out into not
being
even interesting.
And then the one at the end is where
Board and the Nail.
That's the one.
No, that's monkey's paw.
That's the monkey's paw one.
The Frankenstein one is the last one.
And then the last one's the Frankenstein one, where ultimately
Homer
Burns gets
Bender.
grafted. Yeah, and then Burns gets grafted onto Homer's head or neck, and then you have this silly meta thing that doesn't work at all, where it's like maybe this is real, and I'm like, okay, I don't know. It seems like early on the Treehouses start as kind of a misstep concept, where they finally get out of it by 4 and 5.
They got better at it as they went.
Well, it seems like the concept early on is supposed to be like subverting the horror thing, where by the end of it, it's not supposed to be scary, or it's scary in a totally different way, and it just very often doesn't quite pan out.
Well, that was the defense I'll give for this Treehouse of Horror is that since it's set up as nightmares that the kids had after eating too much candy.
Yeah. And Homer.
Nightmares really do that.
That's true.
They start out with an arresting premise, and then they kind of spin apart and fall apart into something that's just lame and dumb and makes no sense.
And also, but also, to its credit, yeah, you're right about that. But also, to its credit, it's maybe a little bit better than I'm giving it. As you're saying that, because the nightmares are your nightmare might not be a nightmare for another person.
Right.
So the other idea is. Like Bart, the scary thing about Bart's dream.
Nightmare. This one's
the scary thing about Bart's dream, which is by the way not an episode title but a video game title. There's an NES game called Bart's Nightmare. Bart is the scary thing for that dream is the end of it.
Yeah.
Where he's I can't remember what it is. It's like is it like he and Lisa are getting along or he and somebody is getting along? I can't remember what it is now.
He gets a hug from his father.
Yeah, oh, that's what it is. Yeah. So that was the nightmare part for him. Like, I didn't think that was all that funny, but I like the POV of it.
Yeah.
It's like, that was the nightmare part. I don't know what the nightmare part of Lisa's was, though. Because when you get to the end of that, it just kind of, like you said, it drizzles out, and then she wakes up and she's all freaking out, but I'm like, but the aliens will run off. What was scary about the end of that? Like,
one day, there will be bigger boards and bigger nails.
Bigger nails!
But the alien part is my favorite part of that entire episode. Just A for the board and the nail thing, and also the fact that they invade Earth with like slingshots.
It's hilarious. I like that in a vacuum, but I think the second part of it as a segment is a better segment.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I do think it's interesting we bring back Kang and Kodos, except this time they actually are the invader aliens, while last time they were a subversion of that.
Yeah.
How to cook for 40 humans.
It's weird because when I see that's another thing where there are a couple funny jokes in that, but at the end it's just not good. When they laugh, I'm just hearing Skinner and Homer.
Yeah.
Like, the actual voices, I'm not taken out, but whenever they laugh, I'm just hearing Skinner laughing and Homer laughing.
Well, they are the same people, aren't they?
Yep. It's intentional.
Well, if you wanted to make the preparer cry, mission accomplished.
Okay, so I'm jumping all over the place, but talking about voices, I didn't look this up, but I'm pretty sure, and I want to know if you caught it. I'm pretty sure that the voice actress doing Milhouse's girlfriend is Dot from The Tick.
It is.
Yes, I think that's right.
I didn't even look it up, but I recognized that voice. I was almost positive that's who that was.
I was going to ask you if you guys picked up on that, because I didn't know that until I looked up that actress.
Yeah. Well, she was sure familiar. I did not peg her correctly, but
I didn't get it until the second viewing, because on the second viewing I started thinking, okay, she sounds a little bit like Milhouse, and I thought maybe the joke was the Milhouse voice was doing both of those voices, which they could have done.
That'd be hilarious.
And then, because I'm pretty sure Milhouse is voiced by a woman, just like Bart is. And then, because I haven't looked up some of these voice actors, I don't know everything.
I think she only voices Milhouse.
And so I started thinking, oh, really? Milhouse is also the Bart actress?
No, I think that actress might only play Milhouse.
Oh.
Might be wrong.
So I started listening a lot closer to her voice, and then I was like, wait a minute, no, that's not. Yeah. That's not from The Tig.
I watched it.
Yeah, I didn't. I think I've seen one episode of that Tick show. Because that's the live action one, right?
No, the animated series.
Oh, okay, then I guess I just forgot because it's been a while.
It's a voice actor who voiced Dot and voiced this, yeah.
See, now I'm seeing Milhouse saying her hair is like a halo of mouse fire.
Fire.
Well, that's going to be with me all day. Okay.
Milhouse, though, is a character they definitely fall in love with pretty early, considering they will have him just show up for one-off jokes, like being forgotten at that concert, or like, oh, he just Krusty the Clown's here. Oh, Milhouse just shows up. Let's just insert him because we like him.
Because his life is so empty. He has no joy and no hope except to clam onto Bart Simpson's life.
So that's unfortunate.
That's pretty dark.
Mhm. Yeah, well, and we all know that he's a bad role model, and Milhouse shouldn't hang out with them
Yeah.
because they don't say "suck" on TV.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was great. I think it's amusing that, and I want to talk about
That was a rare good moment for Marge in this season.
Well, what's weird about Marge is, like she has a lot of really funny lines. Like, some of the best lines are actually Marge lines this season, but she's just not a great character.
Yeah.
So she ends up watching too much like a plot device, I think.
Yeah, I can see that.
But yeah, I wanted to talk just briefly about continuity, and the Milhouse's mom thing reminded me of this because there's a surprisingly tight continuity this season relative to what we've seen so far. There's just a lot, partly because of all of the sequels that are pretty close to what happened in the previous episodes, but also we just keep doing like really cool nuanced callbacks to things that have happened earlier. But I do think it's amusing that Milhouse's mom is really anti-Bart in that one episode where she won't let him hang out with Milhouse anymore because he swears too much. And then later on, when Bart or when he's going out with that girl, Bart comes over and she's like, "I'm really glad you have he has such a good friend like you." And I'm like, a few episodes ago, you did not have that.
That made me think of another episode, which I think is later, where Bart comes over a couple of times to Milhouse. Milhouse is playing a video game that he wants. And when Milhouse gets tired of him, he yells to his mother, "Mom, Bart's smoking!"
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, one of them is
So
swearing.
one of
It's
them
like,
trying to
"Mom,
chase him
Bart's
out."
swearing," and then later on it's, "Mom, Bart's smoking." And both times it's her like pushing him out of the house.
In a full circle.
Yeah, I think that's like season 11. Maybe it's a later one.
Oh wow.
That's Chris's episode, yeah. Yeah, like Stephen Murphy says, he's Thrill House. Plays that game.
Bone Store.
But overall, I'm really impressed with. I'm trying to come up with some good examples, but I'm really impressed with the weirdly tight continuity of this season, where like they seem to sort of be keeping track of stuff that's happened before in a way that we didn't do as much in the second season.
Yeah, and with like we get flashbacks to like Krusty gets busted and stuff like that, because like we said earlier, we get two kind of sequels to that episode, so we're definitely paying attention.
Yeah, and I just thought even like subtler character stuff, and like you were talking about earlier with the Patty and Selma thing, like it's kind of a direct sequel to that episode also, but not really. Like it's more layered if you've seen that, because now
you get more
now they've
like
both gone through the same thing.
You get kind of more thematic episode sequels. Like you can kind of look at the two Homer and Lisa episodes as continuing with the ending of Lisa Substitute.
Yeah.
And we also get a Santa's Little Helper episode, which was entirely because they liked the episodes with him in season 1 and 2. So even though that's not really a direct sequel, that was the writers being like, let's do more of that.
Oh, another thing that keeps coming up for whatever reason is Gomer Pyle. There's at least 2 references to that for some reason. I don't know why, but we keep doing that. There's a bit in Bart the Lover where this is a really specific little moment, but there's a bit where Flanders mentions a situation that just happened at his store, and I wondered if he still has the Leftorium, or if he's just talking about the pharmacy. Like, that's the kind of continuity stuff I'm talking about, where, like, he may still have the Leftorium, I'm not sure, because he's talking about being behind a cash register.
There's at least one later episode where you see Ned Flanders is still running the Leftorium.
Really?
In another season.
Yeah, no, he's still got the leftorium.
Okay.
We don't see much of it.
So that's a neat bit of
But we do
continuity
see it
because
again.
we don't have a lot of status quo shifts in the show.
Right.
Like, it doesn't happen that much. And I think they very easily could have gotten away with just, very quietly not even dealing with it. Just he's back at the pharmacy. Something, he doesn't have the leftorium anymore.
Well, and sometimes we do that with side characters. Like, obviously, with Flanders, for example, you get, like, now he works for the Leftorium, now his wife's dead, and then later on he'll date Krabappel, and then she'll also die.
Yeah.
And then you get stuff like Apu, like, he gets married, and then he has kids, and so forth. Like, we sometimes will develop side characters a little bit more.
That's true, because he definitely doesn't have a family this early. He's got that line where his brother or cousin or something is like, "Don't sleep with my wife," and he's like, "Nope, no promises."
Yeah, no, I don't
On the
think
other
he
hand,
gets
Molman
kids until like
keeps
season
coming back
11.
to
I
life.
think.
Does he keep dying? Does Molman die and come back?
Yeah, that's a big thing. Is Mole-Man
Cars
dies in a lot of
all the
early
time.
appearances.
I guess it never occurred to me that he was actually in a car that exploded, but I guess he was. Yeah, of course. Okay.
Yeah, he's in a lot of cars that go down burning.
One rule they seem to have is Homer can get as many newfangled pieces of furniture that he wants, and he doesn't have to still have it the next episode.
Right. Like the world's most comfortable chair.
The world's most comfortable chair. Yeah, you really need to watch The Tick because there's a lot of weird parallels that we're finding with this. But yeah, I did like that bit at the end where he's like, where his brother is acting like just his forgiveness is enough, and it's like, Homer, I bought you the damn chair.
Yeah. That was fun.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
It's almost
Sweet
heartfelt.
and
Yeah.
bittersweet and
At least he
all at the
didn't
same
punch
time.
him again after that.
So I like that episode more than you do, but I really get your issue with it, and I think you're winning me over on your problems with it, but will you give it that his invention is a really funny idea?
yeah.
Like, I love that. I think that's the main reason I enjoyed that episode so much, is just the idea of a
baby
translator for babies, and just his gruff voice, just Danny DeVito doing every baby. Like,
my diaper
I
change.
soiled myself. Like, it's really funny every time it says something.
They could have
I also
They could have
didn't
done so much more with that.
I also didn't expect it to work,
Yeah.
which I think is maybe why I thought it went far enough, because I didn't think it would even work. And also, the things the baby says, the babies say, is pretty believable.
Yeah.
So, like, some of that was really funny.
That was a concept I liked from the episode.
It's basically that Up thing with dogs.
Yeah.
But I actually think it's funny with babies. I don't know.
It's funny in
Well,
a different way.
it's mainly funny because it's Danny DeVito voice.
Yeah.
We just sat with a tape recorder, and yeah, because when they put that on the market, it's not going to be his voice, but you want it to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably also not just like a board with like a speaker on it.
With a nail
Yeah.
through it.
Soon there will be bigger speakers.
Bigger boards and bigger speakers.
You know, the upgraded
They'll
model.
build
You have
one
a
big
couple
enough
of
to
those.
destroy them all.
You know, you can choose between DeVito, John Cleese, Bobcat Goldthwait. And
You can do one that's maybe Michael Jackson. It
Stein.
might be a sound-alike. We don't
Oh
know.
my God, Ben Stein would be the best. I need a diaper change.
This pacifier is no longer tastes good to me.
Well, guys, we're at almost the 2-hour mark, so we need to get to categories here.
Maybe we
Before
should
we
do
do that, why don't we go ahead and take about a 5-minute break? We usually do that right before the commentary, but I think I want to go ahead and do it right now. So we'll come back, we'll do our categories, and then we'll just go straight into the commentary right after that.
Okay.
So hopefully not more than another hour, or this will be longer than
This
the
is
first
where you
two.
put up the Santa's Little Helper and say, "We'll be right, Bark."
See, I wish I had.
Or the Simpsons technical difficulties.
Yeah, that one's good. Or the to be continued from that episode where Bart's in front
the end
of
of
the
the first
alleyway, and then the cop and then the car's coming at him, and it's to be continued, but it's over a commercial break. That's one of my favorite bits. Anyway.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, let's go ahead and do that right now. We're gonna take about a 5-minute break, and we'll be right back with you. If anybody pops in the comments and is wondering where we are, because I did not make a "we'll be right back" sign, just let folks know that we did not disappear off the face of the. We did not get kidnapped by Kang and Kodo. So we'll be right back.
How to cook.
Okay, we're back. Just waiting for Austin.
Austin city limits.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if I'd be muted if I came back on, so I was like, I might as well just wait till you guys get
It
on.
occurred to me that I was like, are we waiting for you or are you waiting for us? I don't know. I guess I'll just sit down. Okay, do you have
Somebody's waiting.
headphones?
Oh,
Did you have your earbuds or do you want me to get you some headphones?
let me grab those.
Everybody
here they are.
give us just a second while we get situated. In fact, I'm going to turn that light off.
Real headphones, that'd be better.
Okay, I'll give you some in a second, and we actually won't need them right away, but I don't know why I put those on. It's just force of
I hate
habit.
these things. They don't stay in.
That's why I don't use them anymore, man. I always go over the ear for everything. I pulled some out for you, so yeah, we'll just plug these in when we get there.
It's always a good bet to assume that I will not follow instructions.
You don't need them yet, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and get into our categories if we can. And before we start getting into best and like favorite, least favorite stuff, we're gonna let Austin, and I've got a few as well, throw some episode formulas at us. What patterns were you seeing this season, Austin?
So I just have like the same like base like formulas that I did like for the first two, mainly the second one because I came up with more for that season.
Sure.
But a lot of that kind of fit into those same basic structures. So I have marital crisis, which would go to Colonel Homer as the big one, and I Married Marge kind of goes that direction. I got protest, which is Mr. Lisa Goes to Washington, which is very strange at the end, and I can never tell how satirical that ending is. I've never been sure if they're like sincere with that ending or if that's entirely sarcastic.
A little girl is losing faith in democracy.
My boss needs me to do this. You have a boss? Yes. All 300 million of them.
Yeah. I don't know what they're getting at with that.
Yeah, I don't know. I could see it either way because it also feels very sarcastic, but also at the same time, they haven't really done anything like that. Like it's not like the ending of the Radioactive Man movie episode where they go to Hollywood and there's like a giant rainbow over it and everybody loves each other there.
Yeah, you're right, because it almost makes it look like there's just one corrupt part of the government. But, like, you know, at the very top, it's all totally above board, of course. So, like, you know, nothing weird going on whatsoever with the guy right at the head. But then senators and lobbyists, that's where the problem is.
Or that the very top is like another meta level of corrupt where we recognize that we have to stage a comeuppance for this guy that has been discovered to win back the faith of people so that they don't realize that, no, we actually are this corrupt.
It's just weird because when Bush says that, it doesn't seem like a thing he's saying for the public's benefit. It seems like it's telling the audience this is a good person.
Yeah, well, and it should be noted too that this is before the Waldens versus the Simpsons Bush speech. So after this, like, this is not how they depict Bush.
Yeah, they will never be this kind to him again.
Speaking of that, I think
not feel unjust.
I think one of the best kind of throwaway gags in that though is we're at the Watergate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
cracks me
pretty
up
good.
to think that's a real place.
That was really funny to me.
Something about being born just exactly when I was. It just cracks me up to think that the Watergate is actually a real place.
And is it still
open?
There? Is it still there? Like,
yeah, it's still a hotel.
God, you think they have a gift shop about Watergate stuff?
Yeah. You'd think they'd change the name.
It's like, this is what we're known for, so we're just gonna lean into it, and we're really crass about it, and it's all just like Woodward and Bernstein stuff and Nixon stuff, like anti-Nixon stuff.
The skid.
Is that?
Yeah, you can get like plush like recorder stuff, so you can like record scandals.
And here is the G. Gordon Liddy suite.
You have a Nixon voice changer.
It's like a Darth Vader thing you put on a Nixon mask. It's got these buttons on it.
It's a voice modulator.
be amazing.
Yes, like it's got a few built-in lines, but it's also got a voice modulator.
Animatronic jowls that wiggle.
Every time Woodward has a book out, he does his first book signing at that hotel.
If they're not doing this, they need to get on it.
Yeah, seriously, it's right there. It's like
make this happen, world.
It's like Sonic Drive-In not doing Sega tie-ins. It's right there. How are we not doing that?
And why can't they go faster?
I don't. Yeah, it's called Sonic. It doesn't make sense in any direction. Anyway,
every time I eat there, I gotta go fast.
That's fair. That's absolutely fair. That's why I don't eat fast food anymore. What the hell were we talking about?
So
formulas.
Other formulas.
Right.
I got you got vacations.
I don't understand that.
You got vacation / them in another country or state, which goes to Mr. Lisa goes to Washington. They go to Washington, and Homer alone. Marge goes on vacation to the spa.
Yep.
And the animators really like drawing her feet in close up for some reason. It's a little weird. There's a lot of that.
Is it just because they already have the models from her sister's feet, which they also keep going to for jokes of feet rubbing?
Something about the Bouviers.
Yeah, they're very obsessed with that for some reason. Somebody really liked drawing Marge's feet in that episode.
That's just terrific right
there. You got Kids Helping Krusty, which is Like Father, Like Clown. Past or Future, I Married Marge. So sports, there's Saturday's Thunder, which of course the boxcar racing. Lisa the Greek, which is them betting on football. And Homer at Bat, which is like the big baseball episode this season.
A lot of sports this season.
A little bit of that in Homer Defined, too.
Yeah, and...
Oh, true, yeah.
Something I wanted to bring up, because I think it's interesting just with the episode order, because obviously these weren't meant to be binged, and it was just, on broadcast, and you watch it week to week. But weirdly, the previous episode, before Homer at Bat, ends with a baseball reference. Mm-hmm. It's very interesting where the picture that Bart picks for the guy who is allegedly writing the letters to Kerbopple. At the end, we reveal that it's a baseball guy, and they give us his stats, which is really funny. And then it's got
like the bam, bam,
it's got the baseball
bam,
music,
bam.
and then the very next episode is the whole baseball tribute episode. Yeah.
Nice.
And I just that really jumped out at me as being a segue.
You got secondary Homer jobs where he is a musical manager in Colonel Homer.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have side character
we
spotlights.
Do that, don't we?
And when he works at the Quickie Mart.
Yes.
Oh, I forgot to write that one down. No,
Lisa
of course.
Pony.
Yep.
That will also go onto the list of the unrealistic injuries.
Yes. Good call.
Him on the ground with the doors hitting his head.
I weirdly found him kind of sympathetic in that episode and kind of felt for him when he was working two jobs, and particularly the moment where, he put himself in that situation, and I think the reason I like it so much is because it's supposed to be a quick fix, and it's not that at all, right? Like, he's having to really pay for it the whole time, and he actually tries, and I really appreciate that. But particularly the moment where he lays down for a quarter of a second and has to get right back up again.
Yeah, no,
that
I
hurt
like
in the
how
moment. It's funny, but it's also kind of sad. I don't know.
Yeah, just showcasing how people make sacrifices for their family, and it's a really good episode. Yeah.
And the kids don't know.
It also
is
Homer, of course, is the greatest employee a convenience store has ever seen.
He was the greatest employee.
He talks about all the things that they stole and all the things he did wrong, but that's still the best damn it, and it probably is, right?
Yeah.
Like,
because it's the first employee he's ever had.
He swore at the customers. You stole.
Yeah.
He's best employee a convenience store has ever seen. And then I have side character spotlights. So you got Krusty with Like Father, Like Clown, Moe and Flaming Moe's, Mrs. Krabappel and Bart the Lover, Selma and Black Widower, Otto and the Otto Show, and Millhouse, and Bart's friend gets a girlfriend. No,
Not
Bart's
a
girlfriend
great
gets a
episode
friend.
title.
No,
There's a couple of those.
It's strange.
Just kind of lame episode titles.
you can't win them all.
Yeah. For the most part, it's
Yeah.
fine. I feel like the season weirdly peters out a little bit. Like, I think the worst episodes are in the back end.
Yeah, going back
Right.
to it.
I mean, your least
well, I
favorite
like
episode is
this-
the last episode of the season.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I'm thinking what comes before that.
Bart's friend falls in love, which I think is mediocre, and the auto show, which is also mediocre in my mind. Right before that is Black Widower, which is a lot of people's favorite episode. So I don't know. I just think the last 3 episodes of the season are the least impressive to me. There's
Yeah,
nothing
like,
before that I like less than any of those 3 episodes. Not that any of them are actually bad, but they're the worst episodes of the season, I think. Not to get ahead of
The
myself.
least good.
Not to get ahead of myself. Pardon
Yeah,
me,
and I
pardon me,
like
guys.
season 3, but I think Al Jean and Mike Reese do a lot better next season. I think it's a lot tighter.
Okay. I was just checking to see if there's any other not very good
Like they sat down
episode titles.
before the year and came up with all the episode ideas, and the ones that were the best ideas were the ones that jumped to mind, and so they did them first.
Yeah.
Maybe so.
Well, and I think they were also pretty nervous as like new showrunners too. Like with Lisa Goes to Washington, they rewrote that like 7 times because they were really nervous about that episode. They wanted it to be perfect.
That shows.
Yeah, some of them are definitely a lot more confident than others. The Lurleen episode is super confident.
Yeah.
They're not afraid of anything
That is
in
tight
that.
like a drum.
Hmm?
And that is the only episode of the show that is that gets a sole writing credit from Matt Groening.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, every other time you see him in the credits for writing, it's always with people.
Did not
And
notice
the other writers thought he wrote Homer as too much of a jerk in that episode.
Wow. I don't agree with that.
Yeah, no, I
certainly
don't
far
either.
From the most jerky we've seen him.
And
Yeah,
in the
exactly.
season, even.
Yeah.
Also, other super tightly written episodes that are kind of filled with confidence. Lisa the Greek is in there. The episode where Lisa helps pick the football winners. That's a really tightly plotted episode. There's a lot of really good setup and payoff in that. It'll be interesting when we get to MVPs because I'm in like a tied place with that. What is it?
That was the one I didn't really enjoy.
Oh, really? I like that one a lot.
I don't know, the device kind of worked, and yet kind of made me feel weird
What about it?
about setting it up so that she would give
Oh, the
her
bit,
prediction
yeah.
would be right or wrong, as a measurement of whether she loved her father or not.
You're right. That's weird. Yeah.
Like, I don't know where else you could have gone with this plot, but this
It's a weird
was not the
ending,
right
yeah.
place for me.
Is it too TV?
Yeah. I don't buy her magical powers being predicated on that.
That's fair. Nope, that's totally fair. I'm with you on that.
You're gonna give me magical powers. Make them make more sense than that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I liked everything up to that though.
But it had some great moments in it. They always do.
I also, because we were talking about writing,
Yeah.
the episode Separate Vocations, where we talked about earlier, where Bart and Lisa kind of switch, that was basically a 1 draft script, and they made like a few revisions, but that was basically it.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
That episode is
'Cause that held
fantastic.
together really well.
And first time out, that wasn't one that stuck out to me stood out to me real hard. But the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, just on a writing line, it's almost objectively just one of the better scripts they have.
Yeah.
And the writer's room wasn't really involved with that episode, too. Like, it was mostly just the one guy that wrote it.
I like the bit where he's like, "Be careful with that crossbow."
Yeah.
I love when they give Bart the gun, where they're like, we have no cover.
Yeah.
Bart, we need you to cover
This
us.
breaks every regulation, but here, have this gun.
Yeah. Issues of Mad, Cracked, and the occasional issue of Crazy.
Crazy. That's definitely the best of the Lisa disenfranchised episodes, which we do
Yeah.
like 3 or 4 times this season. We do that a
Yeah,
lot
there's a
this
lot of
season.
Maybe that's why Lisa gets to be so smart.
Where she just keeps
She
learning
has
that lesson
these
over and over.
Learning she has all of these challenging experiences that cultivate her inner wisdom.
Well, and they
Yeah,
seem
and
to
I
have
think they
needed to
picked
write
up-
a couple of not as great episodes that do that before they get to separate locations, which is legitimately great.
Well, I think they picked up on how good Moaning Lisa and Lisa's Substitute were from season 1 and season 2.
Because so far my favorite episodes have been Lisa episodes. Or if not my favorite, the ones that I found most genuinely moving, right? Like, those keep making that category for me. Because just on an entertainment factor, my favorite episode from last season was the comic book one. And this season, I was really conflicted because it was between a genuinely moving episode and just a really fun episode. I'm so neck and neck with two with that when we get there. Okay, any other formulas you want to talk about?
No, I threw out all of mine. So it's whatever you got.
Well, let's just go ahead and get to the rest of the categories then, because most of what I wrote down would just echo things that you said. And I want to get to the commentary and try to not make this a 4-hour show. So let's go ahead and get into... Let me scroll back up to the top here. Okay, we're going to begin with funniest moment of the season. We'll start with Austin. Usually we're looking for a visual moment. I don't know if I have this in the same order that you guys do. I might have botched the order, but we're just going to start with where mine is. So best moment of the season, not to be confused with best line of dialogue. So if you can come up with something different that's more visual, that's usually what we're looking for. I'm going to have lots of runners-up, I should say, because there's so many great things from this season. But Austin, what is your favorite?
So mine, we talked about earlier, was the Kang Kodos board with a nail in it thing, where you just see Mo chasing him away. I also have the bit, it's the beginning of Colonel Homer, where it's Lisa's slumber party, and Homer looks down, and Maggie's like all dolled up, and he's like, "That's it, I'm getting out of here."
Yes.
I almost wrote that down for most disturbing moment.
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong.
Kind of bothered me a little bit.
Yeah.
Geoff, what'd you have?
Oh, my favorite visual gag, I think, is the separate vocations when we see the Iowa testing center. And true fact, the company that designs a lot of the standardized tests that have been used in the elementary grade levels, especially during the 80s, was out of Iowa City. So Proctorville, Iowa got me. And
Jeff's originally from Iowa.
They showed the image of the supposed facility where these tests are all being graded, and the entry gate is a bell curve.
I didn't even pick up on that. That's great.
I like that. I don't know if that was really the best, but that's what I can remember.
It personally resonated.
That hit me.
That's what's important. Yeah. Absolutely.
I had so many, but the one I put at the top of my list, and I'll mention a couple runners up, is Brother, Could You Spare 2 Dimes? The washer dryer race.
Yes. Yes.
So, and it was really well set up and paid off too. Where toward the beginning, Marge just has these absurdly messed up washer and dryer, and like one of the things I really like about this season is all of the satire about just mundane, dumb things that people have to deal with. And there's one episode that's almost all just ones about traffic and road rage. Like, we do a lot of that this season, and with that one, it's just, like, we've all had that washer and dryer that start shaking out of control, like they're in a 9.5 on the Richter scale earthquake. And I didn't expect it to come back, and then apparently she sold it to Mo. And they're or Mo got it somehow. So when Unky Herb replaced them, they're at Mo's and they're racing, and it was it's just the execution of it, because it's a funny visual in the first place. Yeah, but that's great. But you also have Barney and other people on the side like rooting for particular like yelling washer in a washer dryer race. It's so funny.
In the Jurassic days of computers, when computer systems were the size of a room, hard disk drives were the size of a washer dryer. I mean, this gigantic thing with this huge spinning platter and this magnetic read head that would slip back and forth. Well, you could write computer programs that would make that read head slam back and forth really quick, and actually would make the hard drive unit walk across the floor. And people did race them.
Oh my god, just the idea of betting on that is the most ludicrous thing in my brain. I love it. That's hilarious, and I did not know that. Austin, I wrote this down imagining you might have also had this one. The commercials in Bart's Friend Falls in Love with the rich creamery butter.
Yeah.
No matter what it is, she won't stop saying. Like, the last one is just stuff. Is just like a dessert with chocolate, and then we slather it with rich creamery butter.
It's the new frosty chocolate milkshake.
Yeah, it's a creamery. It's so good. We already talked about the Lord Palmerston thing. I didn't want to put that in as a line because it's not the line; it's the execution. Yeah. But specifically, not just they're going back and forth. The whatever the first thing was, the Lord Palmerston, but also but the bigger thing, and the reason I put it down as a
elder.
Yeah, there you go. The reason I put it down as a visual gag was the bit where he knocks Mo out just for saying Pitt the Elder. He's like, "No, Lord Palmerston." That's the best.
After hitting
you got him, Barney. Pitt the Elder. Lord Palmerston.
Wow. Grandpa playing video games and Lisa's Pony could have gone on for 5 more minutes for me. I was like, what's a joystick? Where's hyperspace? I couldn't get enough of that, and it ended too quickly. Also, the Chuck E. Cheese parody and Radio Bart.
I had that one too.
You're the birthday boy or girl.
Oh yeah, I love that one too. Yeah.
That one stuck with me
You're the birthday. You're the birthday. You're the birthday boy or girl.
Would you like a birthday song? No. Here we go.
Let's get into. Sorry, is it?
Oh, and like they're all just kind of like worn out. That's great.
One of them catches fire.
And then when the robots like, would you like us to do a song? Hell no. No, okay, here it comes. Funniest line of the season.
Signor Beaverati.
And I don't know. I like those kind of parodies, and again, just mundane satire. If you look at a lot of cartoons from the early '90s, with any kind of social satire, they all went to Chuck E. Cheese. They all made fun of that stuff. There's a Dexter's Lab episode that does it, where there's a whole episode about it. It's really great. But anyway, Austin, what is your favorite line for the season?
Mine is from Colonel Homer. It's Marge, it takes 2 to lie, 1 to lie and 1 to listen.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
What does it even mean?
I also have, I think, the weirdest line in the season, maybe the show so far, and it's when Bart's hanging out with Martin in his bedroom, and he goes, "Hey, Bart, would you like to hear me play the lute?"
Yeah.
He's so desperate for friendship, he's like, sure, and then he regrets it immediately.
Yep.
Yeah, that will become a running thing, like Martin just plays the lute.
Yeah. You see him in another episode with the Renfest cap and everything.
Surely there's a Renfest episode, right?
I'm not aware of one.
I mean, in
No,
the
I'm not sure what that is.
I'm sure eventually they get to it.
It's in one of the seasons I haven't seen.
Geoff, do you have one?
I have too many.
You have too many to pick one.
That's the hardest part, yeah.
Like, it would add an extra hour if I read my list.
Well, I'll just read a couple then. This came up earlier already too, but my top one is, of course, Bart the Lover with Homer when he sticks his foot through the nail. That stuck with me all through childhood. Like, I still have flashbacks to this moment and could never remember what episode it was in, so I was really glad that we finally got to it. But the thing with the swear jar, where he puts his foot through a nail and he's like, "Fiddle-dee-dee, that will require a tetanus shot. I'm not going to swear, but I am going to knock this doghouse down!" Never gets old. You can see that over and over and over again. It would have to be my top 5 for the show.
But Homer, did you look inside the doghouse? Oh, great, it's Maggie. No, past that. Beer.
How did you know?
Yeah. How's the dog gonna get in?
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I mentioned earlier that some of the best lines of the season are from Marge, so I wanted to throw one in here. I had a couple, and I just axed some things out. But Homer defined when they're playing Monopoly, and Marge says, "Bart, don't feed your sister hotels." Just the execution of the line delivery is a lot of why stuff will show up. He's got a board with a nail in it. We mentioned earlier, of course, that's an absolute classic.
If you want something fat and hairy pawing at you, we could get a cat. Yeah, it would leave less hair on the couch.
That's way too accurate, and I need you to never do that again. Because
you should never stop talking like that.
No, I'm totally kidding. It sounds too perfect. It's too good of an impression, and I can't deal with it. I married Marge, Homer, before Bart is born. As long as he's got 8 fingers and 8 toes, he's fine by me. Brilliant. And they reference the 4-finger thing a couple or a few times this season, because there's also that thing where Lisa reads out of a magazine or a book or something, where she's like, in the future, humans will have 5 fingers.
Ooh, freak show.
I didn't have a best new character because I didn't notice anybody, any like newly established recurring characters. Is there anybody?
Yes, we get Fat Tony, Milhouse's parents.
This is his first episode.
Okay. Which Fat Tony's mine, but it kind of feels more obligatory because we have very few new characters. This might be the last show for new characters.
It might be. You know what though? He's great in his episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's really funny. My favorite running gag, or I mean, I guess it's the one, but the great running gag in that is "Don't play dumb with me." He's like, "What's a truck?"
Yeah.
What's a moida?
Don't play dumb with me.
He's basically pretending to be like a mob boss version of Forky.
Yeah.
What's a truck? What's a book?
I've watched enough of Criminal Minds, where Joe Mantegna is a major character for most of the series shows run. So Fat Tony in this, all I can see is David Rossi.
That's weird.
Yeah, I really like that episode.
Yeah, well, and apparently that episode, they came up with it before Goodfellas came out, and then that movie came out, and they were like, this is kind of similar to Goodfellas. Let's just draw more parallels to that.
Steer into the skid.
Yeah,
There's a lot of that
exactly.
with the show. Yeah, and you miss fewer opportunities by doing that, I think. Geoff, did you have anything else for that category?
Yeah, I couldn't have. I didn't know that was the first appearance of either Fat Tony or Milhouse's mom.
I didn't think of it.
So I didn't think of that. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, it's them and Lunch Lady Doris. That's it.
Most legitimately
Watch how fast I go.
That's great. Most legitimately heartwarming moment, Austin.
I had a really hard time with this one.
There's too many.
There's too many. Ultimately, I put down the ending of Separate Vocations, where Bart kind of takes the blame for Lisa, and then at the end, you kind of reestablish their roles, where Bart's writing on the chalkboard and Lisa's playing outside.
That was mine.
Yeah.
That probably is the best one.
Oh, really?
And like the more I'm thinking about it, I think that's better than the Lisa the Greek bit. With the
Interesting. I thought I'd be an outlier with that one.
Yeah. Well, Geoff makes a really good case with the issues with that and how 2TV it is. But also the more we're talking about it, the more I'm appreciating Separate Vocations. It's a sleeper thing, man. Like it's better than I gave it credit for just watching it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of those things. Like if I started writing about it, a lot of stuff would come out. You know what I mean? Like it's dense. There's a lot of really
things that don't pop out immediately, but then they're there.
It's a good character piece.
Well, and I think too, one of the sweetest kind of episodes this season is the Michael Jackson episode, which you guys didn't get to watch for this too, which probably also helps.
Yeah, that's coloring this
The whole
too.
episode was heartwarming.
Because that would have topped the list probably,
Exactly.
or been really close anyway.
I was really struggling between those two specifically. I also like the Bart the Lover ending.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Me too. Best pop culture reference, Austin.
Uh, Mine's showing my hand as an Indiana Jones fan, but it's the entire Raiders of the Lost Ark opening.
I mean, it's funny, but it's kind of obligatory. I don't know. I just feel like everything did that right then.
That's fair.
UHF
well,
has one. Like, everybody does that bit. Although
Yeah.
Homer as the ball is pretty great. And it's nice to get one where they're actually, because it's Fox, they're able to use the music.
Right.
I like Homer as the ball when he smashes into the garage door, and then when he's like the natives at the end, he's got Drake.
It's amusing because there are places this season where they have to do like a parody version of background music, and then other places where they can just use the actual music. So I can't remember. I can't remember what the thing is, but there's that theme that they go to a couple times where they're dancing around the original melody. That's like ba 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 ba. I can't remember what that is.
That's Axel F.
I don't even know what that is. What is that?
Oh, I think that's the actual song, though. I don't
there
think
you
it's
go,
a parody
okay.
of it.
No, it is parody.
it?
They're
Yeah?
dancing around the original melody of that.
There's one
okay.
where they parody it, but I think there's another one where they actually use it.
In this
I thought
season,
they actually used it.
They used the fake one twice.
Really?
I'm positive
Okay.
it's fake. Yeah.
Gotta go watch it again.
Yeah. I mean, feel free to look again and tell me if I'm wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure I'm right about it. I don't know. I could be mistaken.
Although one thing is that Indiana Jones isn't Fox, it's Paramount.
Yeah, so how did they get that? I just thought it maybe Fox distributed it or something.
No, it's Paramount. That's why they can't put Indiana Jones on Disney Plus.
Well, it's amazing they were able to use that episode with that music then. I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
Maybe just that 1 week that year, they had an agreement.
How does that even work? Yeah, but then with the streaming rights, this isn't interesting to anyone. Did you have anything else for that?
No, but I was gonna say because you've watched The Critic, right?
Yeah. And Jeff's a big fan of that show.
Yeah, because Al Jean and Mike Reiss, the showrunners for the season, would later go on to create that show, and we get a lot more pop culture references this season, specifically recreating moments from movies.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you guys think this is kind of prototype The Critic, because I've heard a lot of people say that their Simpsons seasons, you can kind of see the beginnings of The Critic in them.
See, I wouldn't say prototype, because as far as storytelling goes, The Critic is a step down from this.
Mm-hmm. Or you know what I mean, but just
But
you can see kind of the basis for that.
I can certainly see the humor sensibilities and all the references and stuff.
Yeah, because that was their basic joke.
Yeah, it's a really funny show. It's not as well written as this show.
It's sort of
Because I've always
occupies
heard
the
that, but
missing
never
link between
seen
the
The Critic.
Simpsons and
Family Guy.
Matt Groening.
Oh,
Seth. Todd McFarlane.
That's Family Guy.
Right.
Yeah, I meant to mention this earlier, so I'm really glad that you brought it up. We're getting more, obviously, not just pop culture references, but just getting into being squarely like in the period that we're in, and making some references to things and talking about stuff that's not going to be as relevant after the fact. It still feels more timeless than some of the later seasons will. Like, I think there's bits. There are more bits here than there would be in season 2 that if you didn't grow up with in that period, you might be lost on and not appreciate. But none of it is like major plot points or anything for the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
usually just a single gag that will.
Some of the technology
it tends
stuff
to be
you're
how
not gonna
they
appreciate
open
as much.
episodes too.
Say it again.
It tends to be how they open episodes, like the Indiana Jones thing. You get the not a Clockwork Orange, the 2001 A Space Odyssey, like the monkey scene.
Yeah.
You get the lottery,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
And every copy of Shirley Jackson's The Lottery has been checked out.
And then
And
people
Homer
are
goes
realizing
to
that
the
it's not
fire.
actually about the lottery. Yeah, that's great. The first 2 seasons felt a lot less squarely of the period to me than this does, and some of that might just be my own experience in life, because I mean, I'm like 7 or 8 when this comes out, and this just feels so distinctly 1991, 1992 to me. Whereas, like, the other two seasons, I feel like they were, they weren't working as hard. Maybe they're not even trying to do this, but they weren't capturing the period as hard. I don't know. Something about this is just so extremely those years.
Yeah. You know,
in tone, I guess.
The pop culture reference that stood out for me in this season.
Yeah.
And one that kind of cuts around that issue is the flashback episode I Married Marge.
Yeah.
Because that's full of all of these 80s nostalgia moments, songs, technology, everything.
Which is weird because it feels like the same way we would do a homage to all that stuff now, and it was only 11 years before that.
And it was
and they do that with the past episode in season 2, but it's 70s nostalgia. Like
right.
You get like Steve Miller Band and like the Elton John themed prom and stuff like that.
That's right. And I've never sat down and tried to do the math about whether these timings make any kind of sense for Homer and Marge being in high school, getting married, the birth of their children and their relative ages, because that seems uselessly nerdy to me. But
just get ready for later on where you get like there's an episode between this one and them in high school, but it's set in the 90s.
Yeah.
And we've got the sliding timeline thing, so that's going to get really murky.
You can't think that stuff too hard.
No, especially not when the show's been on long enough. I mean, if you think about it, we're already in a place where we have to deal with sliding ages and stuff because it's 3 seasons and none of our characters have aged.
Yeah.
So Maggie's already been a baby for 3 years. When you watch the first season, you don't even know that that's going to be a joke. But by season 3, we're already in that place where it's like, oh, okay, so nobody's ever going to age.
Like anything.
Well, and the first episode of this season, Lisa goes from being 7 to 8, but she's been 8 the entire show so far.
Yeah.
That's really funny, and they did that on purpose. They know that, like.
Yeah. It's comic book logic, right? Like it's just these characters just slide forward, never really aging.
That and the whole Flaming Moe's episode.
That was
parallels to Cheers.
That was mine. Just all the Cheers stuff. Yeah. And like what's fun is if you haven't seen Cheers at all, but you know the major cultural osmosis stuff, you'll get the theme song. But if you're familiar with Cheers, you'll get Diane like 5 minutes in.
Yeah.
And she is great, and
Barney!
and then the Barney thing is awesome, and I love that, and just the style of the images that they're using. But then I also really like that instead of doing the late 1800s thing that the Cheers theme does, they're going to not just characters from the show, but also like story stuff you're looking at. So you got like sad Homer at the door at the end of that, like it's all relevant to what's happening right now, and puts all those characters in precisely the place they're in right now.
And the theme song they create is a brilliant parody of one of the most brilliant TV theme songs ever.
Yeah.
It's great, yeah. The character, Diane, I think you said, is that the waitress character that Mo hires? Interesting with her, they brought in Catherine O'Hara to record her lines, and then they just couldn't animate to it for whatever reason. They just struggled with that, so they re-recorded it with just like an in-house actress they had. So that was a guest star that just didn't happen.
Oh, that's sad. Because she is just exactly Diane, both in that she's like pretentious and speaks all highfalutin, but then also she sleeps with the boss. And all of that. She sleeps with the boss and pretends like she's never going to.
Yep.
Because that's the whole shtick with Diane.
She went off to pursue a movie career. Frankly, I think she was better off here.
It's great. The other one I had, because that's my top one, but I also felt the need to mention this because I thought it was genius. In the Treehouse of Horror this season, when Bart's turning things into other things, he transforms Snowball 2 into the weird creature that Daffy Duck gets turned into in Duck Amuck, in probably the most famous Daffy Duck cartoon, where Bugs Bunny is like drawing. He's just screwing with him. You don't know it's Bugs until the end of it, so spoiler for an 8-minute cartoon. But he's drawing like all these crazy things that Daffy has to deal with in the middle of this cartoon. And one of them is he turns into this weird creature that has like an umbrella that sticks out his back, and he's got polka dot feet. And the cat turns into that too, but it's not exactly the same thing. It's a legitimate parody of it, and it's fun to go look at a side by side and see what Daffy looked like and what Snowball looks like. It's subtle and not subtle all at the same time. Like if you've seen that, you know what it is. It's great.
That was beautiful.
Well, yeah, because I don't think we talked about this in any of these videos, but you and I have talked about this off camera. How like it's funny Disney owns The Simpsons when they owe so much more to Warner Brothers cartoons.
Yeah, and when they throw Disney under the bus as much or more than any other company. Like they do it a lot with Fox, just making fun of the network they're on. But there's a tombstone at the beginning of Treehouse of Horror that Walt Disney. It's like they're making fun of Disney all over the place. Also,
this show always evinces a lot of awareness of the heritage of animation.
Yeah, good point.
They'll pull out stuff from Warner Brothers Golden Age stuff. They're always linking to the Flintstones, which is Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah, of course.
And Disney, of course.
Well, have you ever thought about that?
You can't talk about animation without Disney.
Have you ever thought about that? Homer goes bowling with Barney.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't had that thought until this viewing, and I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Bowls with Barney. Like, that's intentional, right?
One of my favorite Disney jokes on The Simpsons is, I think it's the episode where they go to Itchy and Scratchy Land, and they're doing some, like, Disney World parodies, and they're doing the kind of Walt Disney thing with the creator of Itchy and Scratchy. And it's like, he made his first film, like, and it's basically Pinocchio, but with Itchy and Scratchy. And then it's like, the film was very popular. His next film, on the other hand, Nazi Supermen Are Superior, was not as popular.
That's great. I'm excited to get into some of that stuff that I don't know.
The Steamboat Willie reference.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they do that, and it's like Itchy throws... Scratchy and like the fire on the boat.
I like the Itchy and Scratchy bit this time where they have that really like crass thing with the well, and then they dedicated it to Timmy O'Toole.
Yeah,
that's great. It was like completely tasteless, and they're like dedicated to Timmy O'Toole, and then Lisa or somebody is like, "Oh, that's really sweet."
I hadn't remembered before rewatching the season.
Yeah,
how much the Itchy and Scratchy shorts in each episode tended to link up thematically.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
that mainly starts this season. Yeah,
they don't all do it, but most of them are at least subtly referencing it, but usually not even subtly. Like it's pretty blatant.
I mean,
no, it's starting here, and it will go farther
do anything subtle.
as we go.
Well, sure, yeah. Well, I guess the reason I say that is because sometimes it'll be before you even know what the episode's about.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't catch it until a second viewing, which is why I didn't think to write it down until the second time I watched it. But there's 4 or 5 of them, and they usually have something to do with the episode.
The gangster one with Fat Tony, isn't that the one where it's like Itchy's a cop and he mows down all the cat gangsters?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, we're starting to do that, and then as we go forward, there'll be a lot more of that where Itchy and Scratchy parallel what's actually happening in the plot.
In their 5-second way.
Yeah,
exactly.
They foreshadow as much as anything. Okay, best music choice. I think I know what Austin's going to say, but go ahead, Austin.
I had a lot of like runner-ups for this one. This was one I was pretty sure I knew what it was going to be going into, and then I found it a lot harder when I actually watched it. So the one I put down was the Michael Jackson song at the end of that episode, but I also really like the song. The Cheers theme is really great. I really like the 2 Beverly D'Angelo songs that she sings in Colonel Homer.
Yeah, which are weirdly just kind of legitimate songs, right?
And she wrote both of those in an hour and like pitched them at the recording. Yeah,
that's wild.
Wow.
Yep.
And she wasn't even a recording artist, right? Wasn't she just an actress?
No, Matt Groening was at a party at Frank Zappa's house, and she did like karaoke there, and then they got her to come in and do an audition, and her audition was just singing like some song.
Like they're not even funny songs; they're just songs.
Mm-hmm.
But did she play the guitar that well?
That's a great question.
Yeah, when I was looking into it, there's quite a bit about the behind the scenes stuff with her, which I thought was pretty interesting. Like, out of all of the guest stars so far who just kind of come in, record their lines, and leave, she like hung around and was like, yeah, like, let's do this and let's do that and all these different things.
That's really cool because she probably made the episode better.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
She came back like almost 2 decades later and did another episode as that character, but I've not seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, because that episode's parodying the Dixie Chicks thing where they like.
Really?
Yeah, with Bush.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I'm curious to see what that looks like when we get there. I might watch it out of order just because I'm curious, but yeah. No, I mean, it might be
that
terrible.
Episode, I think, has the issue of their song in that episode that she sings is basically just following the template of the Apu song in Apu Spotlight episode where he leaves the Quickie Mart.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they kind of just take that as a template and they make a song for her based around it. And I'm like,
that's disappointing.
It's not as good, yeah.
I don't see her character in this episode and the Dixie Chicks as actually being a good map.
I don't either.
Yeah, well, what it is that she has like a estranged father, and he comes back and she writes the song about like, oh, I feel like a daughter again. And then the dad steals the song and he makes it about being patriotic and he gives it to the Dixie Chicks.
Okay.
Oh, so they put the actual Dixie Chicks in it. Okay, well that makes sense.
Oh yeah,
that makes more sense.
Yeah, that's bad. If they were, yeah, because you probably have what I did. I was afraid they threw her under the bus and made her the Dixie Chicks.
Oh no,
and that would be depressing.
She deserves better than that.
Yeah. No, I didn't write those songs down, but I should have because I was really impressed with them. It gave an authenticity to the whole thing where it was like, no, I buy those charting. Like, I actually bought those songs being popular songs.
And the seduction song she gives for Homer later, that is some fine guitar work.
Yeah.
I mean, that's almost too sophisticated for the genre.
At least at that point.
Yeah, and her big recording song has, I think, one of the funniest jokes where they have to stop because of the grinding noise in the background. Yeah. It's Marge grinding her teeth.
Yeah.
Why would she even be there?
I think I got to... Yeah, there's that. I think I got too in the weeds with that whole thing. I had a hard time finding that as amusing as you guys did because there's all this noise through the whole thing that is not a problem with that booth. But then that is...
Yeah.
You've got, like, Lisa playing the saxophone and stuff, and it's not getting on the recording, and there's no problem.
Oh, I think that's just part of the song, though. I thought she was just kind of playing with them.
I don't think it is. Well, but you also had Bart, like, drumming on his legs and stuff. Yeah. Like, none of the other stuff that was going on in that room was a problem, and Marge isn't inside the booth.
Yeah,
it just didn't make any sense.
It's not a logical joke, yeah.
No, I know that, and I get that it's hard to decide when that's a problem or not with a thing like this, but, like, I don't know. That bugged me.
It didn't work in that scene. Seems like they could have done that better than they did.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like
I
said,
fair.
I can be prudish about this. I'll admit it, but it took me out, and I had a hard time laughing at that joke. Well, of course, I picked "Sending Our Love Down the Well."
That's the one I'm like, I feel like I'm missing something. No, of course.
And that's the reason I picked it. It's just the execution of that bit. It's with Krusty. It's hilarious, and also again the authenticity of the writing is there. Yeah. Like the thing that they're making fun of there, it's exactly that thing. Yeah. What is it? The We Are the
that song.
We Are the World. Was that whole thing?
Yeah.
Or?
I think that's primarily the one, but there were a few of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was supposed to be because they get Sting for that episode, but they wanted Bruce Springsteen, and he turned it down. So they were
I love that Sting doesn't even know why he's there. Where he's like we were trying to help a kid down a well or something. That whole thing is great, and then the business about like we have all these things we have to pay for, like limousines and stuff, and then whatever's left over we'll just throw down the well instead of trying to actually pay to get the kid out. Did you guys have this? Why don't they just throw a rope down? I don't understand. Just put it connected to a pickup truck. Why don't we just throw a rope down?
Soon there will be bigger ropes.
Yeah, and it just ends with groundskeeper Willie being like, "Come on, we're gonna
Caution,
dig."
hole.
Like, that's hilarious, but like, oh, why didn't I think of that? Like, digging? It's like, okay,
Yeah.
if they can dig under it, why can't they just put a rope down?
We're having a hole digging.
I also had this question, and obviously this stuff doesn't ruin the episode or anything, and I get that it's a cartoon and there's some cartoon logic, but the thing is, there's little enough cartoon logic that sometimes this stuff jumps out to me. What is the range of the radio? Or the range of the microphone?
Yeah,
because
from his bedroom to the well, there's no way.
Well, and the thing is,
Even if their house is right next to the school playground.
Here's why it's a problem. It wouldn't have even occurred to me. Like, I could have just bought the logic of, okay, it's got this insanely long range, whatever. Like, the walkie-talkies he has with Milhouse also have that. I don't care. Like, I don't have a problem with that. Here's why it's a problem. Why does Bart have to actually be there next to the well when he first starts speaking as Timmy O'Toole?
Oh, yeah.
If the range goes all the way to his house. Like, why risk that? He didn't have to be there.
And I mean, to transmit that distance, a signal that powerful, you'd need like an FCC license to have a transmitter with that kind of power in the commercial radio band.
That's true.
Frequencies.
But I wouldn't have questioned it. It could have just been, like silly logic. But he's standing right next to it as if he needs to because of the range.
Right.
And then later on, just so we can have the plot point about the dog, the dog sound.
Right.
I don't know.
He's becoming a wolf man.
They kind of throw that weird.
Yeah. That was
Well, he was reverting to a feral state. Here's an artist's interpretation.
It's one of my favorite episodes of the season, but that bugs me a little bit. Anyway, and then we talked about the baby comeback thing with Home Alone. There's a few of those, but that was my favorite of those kind of references music choices.
My best song is still the Famous Mouse.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That just after I watched that song was stuck in my head for the next week. Except then the Cheers theme was also stuck in my head for the next week. So I kind of kept alternating.
And you can you'd start off on one, jump off the rails into the next one, and then maybe end up back.
You know what got stuck in my head, and it didn't occur to me that this was basically what Weird Al was doing until I had this. With the Sending Our Love Down the Well song, after I watched that episode, I got a Weird Al song stuck in my head. And it was Don't Download the Song.
Yes.
And that is one of those.
Yeah. It's kind of anthemic.
Yeah.
And I love that song. I just love We Are the World parodies. Like, if you want to make me automatically like your song, parody We Are the World.
That is Sarah's favorite Weird Al song of all time, is Don't Download the Song.
That's one of mine.
When we saw him in concert...
Even Lars Ulrich knows it's wrong.
Yes.
And you could just ask him.
You could just ask him. We were... diamond-studded swimming pools don't grow on trees. When we saw him when he had like a 40 or 50 piece orchestra, and I got to see that song with a 40-piece orchestra, and it was the best. Awesome. Yeah, it's so good. And Sarah about had a heart attack. I mean, it was so cool. And it was directly after the year that he did that like trimmed down Vanity tour where he sang mostly original songs, and he's just sitting on a stool with his band. And it wasn't unplugged, but they didn't do like the big like multimedia show they usually do. And then the very next year he did the huge orchestra show, and I got to go to both, and it was the best thing ever. Yep.
I need to get out more.
That was great. Two of my favorite things I've ever seen right in a row. But anyway, I digress.
Also, the We Are the World parody is awesome because their Arnold character is in it, so you get to hear like Arnold sing part of that song. And it's like you get Sideshow Mel, who's got this very operatic voice in that, and then it just goes over to Arnold, and he's like, "Go on TV and sing."
Okay, so mentioning those characters in the
Get
same
on
place.
TV and do the next best thing.
Go on TV
I apologize because
and
this is not related at all to what we're talking about, but you just reminded me of a point I wanted to make, which is, how are that many of the characters in Springfield left-handed?
Yeah.
You get to the left tournament, everyone is there, and I'm like, oh, are they all left-handed? Or are they buying gifts for people they know that are left-handed? Like, what's that whole thing?
I did appreciate in that episode when Ned Flanders is first making this announcement that he has his left hand up.
Oh, that's cool.
Which, of course he would, but I wouldn't
It's
take
nice
it for granted
attention
that
to
they would.
detail.
That's a nice attention to detail.
That they would
Especially
catch
for an episode that had a lot of animation issues.
Yeah, good call. I also had this thought. Wouldn't it have been cool if in the baseball episode we had seen Daryl Strawberry go to the leftorium?
that.
Because we make a plot point about how he's left-handed, and we want to switch, and then Burns decides to switch hitters to throw off the pitcher.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute, he's left-handed. They should do a thing with him in the leftorium at the mall.
It's called managing.
Hit a home run! See, I told him to do that.
Why is it? Yeah, that was great. Why is it that the only things
Everyone's
Homer?
idea of management.
Why is it the only things that Homer is good at have to do with baseball? Because
Because his name is Homer.
in any, well, that makes
Yeah.
a lot of sense. You finally bagged you one of those. But in that episode, he's able to hit really well, which you would not expect him to be able to do. And he's able, and it's because he has a lucky bat, but he is also able to build a lucky bat, which he also shouldn't be able to do.
I mean, if his attempt to make his own baseball bat comes out that good, his soapbox racer should have looked an awful lot better.
It should have, and we also make a point about how terrible he is at building things in that episode,
Yeah.
because they show us this is another great continuity bit. They show us that spice rack going all the way back to the first season, and then I think first or second. And,
I think second, yeah.
And then they show us a couple other things, and it's like he just made this great, because I found myself going, okay, how crappy is that bag gonna look? And then it didn't. It was great, and I was like, that's weird.
With the Wonder Bat music.
I
From
grabbed
some movie I never saw.
I grabbed a close piece of sheet metal and hit under the biggest.
And I hit under the tallest tree I could find, and I knew that this wood was special and that I could build a baseball bat out of it.
Something told me.
So good. Nearly every joke in that episode lands,
Yes.
and I die every time I watch it. It's amazing. It's all fun. The sideburns thing, and it's all funny.
Yeah, every single scenario they come up with each player is
Dryer
funny.
goes on the
Like,
left.
And then when Burns is like is like what are the odds that my 9 players will fall victim to 9 different misfortunes. I just love the wording of that. And then
Good Lord! Gigantism!
Gigantism! Everything in that episode is funny, and I think it's the most consistently laugh out loud in like every 10 seconds.
Yeah.
As like every 10 seconds, there's something in that episode.
yeah. It's not your fault. You did a good job.
I took so many notes on that episode because I just couldn't stop writing stuff
Not
down.
so
It's
fast,
so
Simpson. Your man's still here.
Kids, tell me when your father stopped scratching himself. Kids, we'll tell you, Mom.
Funny. We'll tell you.
The slow-mo, like Homer hitting his home run.
Okay, I'll mention a couple more from that episode
So
real
good.
quick. I like Marge's game commentary, and I needed more of
Yeah.
that because it's really fun. And then he runs in that direction.
That's like Luna Lovegood's game calling it Quidditch.
Yeah, and my favorite misfortune is the Steve Sachs one where he gets arrested when he's just driving. Specifically because they walk up to his car and immediately put a gun in his face.
New York City, eh? Or there's some
I hear there's a
unsolved
guy who was
murders.
murdered there. It's unsolved. There's a lot of unsolved murders in New York. You just don't know when to quit, Saxy boy.
Homer, are you better than me? Daryl Strawberry. Well, I never met you, but yeah.
Yeah.
Daryl. Daryl.
Oh, I had another question about that episode. I just remembered. How does getting hit in the head count as a hit? That was a plot
Heard
point
that
that
before.
I did not understand.
So when you get hit in baseball by the ball, you get to go forward 1 base. So because he gets hit in the head and all the bases are loaded, they get 1 point because everybody
Okay.
moves forward.
So they just
It's like a ball.
So they just talked about it wrong because Lisa or Marge or somebody says it counts as a hit. It doesn't count as a hit. It counts as a ball. Like, it's tantamount to the same thing, but it's just weird that they said hit, because I'm like, you wouldn't count it as a hit.
Yeah, basically it just counts as a single.
Yeah, okay. Now I understand.
I don't really have enough sports knowledge to...
Yeah, I'm not a big sports guy, but my dad's
vocabulary,
really big into baseball.
Or maybe that is still how you would talk about it, but I was lost on that. But now that you say that, I remember that now, that if you get hit, you walk. Yeah, I forgot about that.
And their picture with Homer, like, knocked out on the floor, that's great.
It's weird
Oh, that's another song that I love, is the baseball song at the end of that episode.
It's great.
That actually, I went into the season being like, that's going to be my number one song, and then it wasn't. But it's great.
I really thought the Well song was going to be your favorite. I'm really surprised that there wasn't.
There's just too many good offerings this season.
Well, just specifically, Austin mentioned that to me before we ever got to season 3, and I was like, he's going to write that down, and then he didn't. There was something else I was going to mention about that. It's just really interesting going back and, historical perspective, like going back and imagining a time when baseball was bigger in this country than basketball. Because we do a lot of baseball stuff in the early episodes of The Simpsons, and this is before Jordan was quite as big as he was, and before, like, basketball gets, massively popular in a lot of other countries because of the Bulls and all of that. Like, that's all on its way and about to happen as big as it does, but we're not quite there yet. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. Because you wouldn't do nearly as much baseball stuff now, just not as many people care about baseball.
Yeah, you do a lot of baseball and football. Those are kind of the two big sports on the show.
Okay, we're taking forever. Real quick, most disturbing moment of the season?
I kind of struggled with this one, so I just wrote Bart working for the mob.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Geoff, did you have anything disturbing?
I was really disturbed.
Well,
I thought of disturbing things.
Yeah, the made-up version of Maggie.
That's pretty disturbing.
Flaming Wolvers.
I will say them, like, unscrewing the bolts on the door to get to Bart is pretty disturbing, and then he, like, jumps out the window.
That whole sequence really is.
Yeah.
Is better better horror than the horror episodes usually are.
Yep.
When Krusty comes to dinner, and they make it really clear that Krusty the Clown actually cannot read.
Well, we knew that from season 1, though.
Yeah, but I didn't.
Oh, sure. But yeah, that's one of those continuity things where they're coming, because that's the whole reason that Sideshow Bob goes to jail.
Oh, right.
Yeah, give a hoot, read a book.
But which also comes back here. There's another poster. I don't know if you saw it, but there's a.
Oh, I didn't. I assumed they dropped it.
Nope, the poster's back. It's back.
That's great.
He didn't say read a book this time, but it said give a hoot, and they either didn't show the bottom of it or it just didn't say it. But that poster's back.
One thing I'll say with that too is I like that both with that and the mob episode is that those characters kind of have their own supporting characters that we don't really see outside of them. Like Krusty has his own secretary, and it makes it feel more like there are other shows that you're not seeing, just like within the show.
And considering how popular this was, you'd think it would have spun somebody off at some point, and it never did.
Krusty almost did.
Okay.
Krusty was going to have a live-action talk show spin-off.
Weird.
And that didn't end up happening.
That's probably for the best.
Yeah. And Dan Castellaneta was going to play him in live action.
Okay, but I think we should all be glad that didn't happen. Probably. Yeah. What if it was brilliant, though? What if it was brilliant?
I used to think your gang was
cool. What if it saved late night?
Crime doesn't pay. Yeah, you're right, kid. And they all drive off in limousines.
My disturbing moment is from Bart the Murderer with the dream sequence with Skinner corpses coming after Bart and the electric chair and Homer with the picket sign that says "Kill my boy."
Kill my boy. Kill my boy, and his mouth isn't moving.
And I think the reason I wrote that one down, what makes it more disturbing is how close real life gets to the dream sequence. Because after you see him go to jail and go to the electric chair and all that, you don't expect him to be tried in the real world as an adult at 10 years old and almost go to prison. Like, real life almost reflects the dream. That's what makes it creepy.
Wow, murder one. Even if I lose, I'll be famous.
Stricken from the record.
We're all quoting over each other now. That's great. And just the image of Burns grafted onto Homer's body, man. Like,
I figured that was going to be yours because when we did that watch party of Treehouse of Horror, you couldn't handle that.
it bothers me. Especially because it's got the bloody neck and all that. It's messed up. I can't deal with it.
Like a cheap Zaphod Beeblebrox.
Yes. If you wanted to force Zaphod Beeblebrox like a puzzle piece, that's how you get that.
In the first TV series they made of that, Zaphod's second head looked worse than that.
By a lot. Because it was animatronic and it was supposed to... Well, it still would have looked crappy even if it worked.
Epic failure.
Even if it worked, it would have looked terrible. But it was made worse by the fact that the mechanical apparatus didn't work, but occasionally the mouth would just like open and sounds would come out. And they just left it because they had no money, and that thing that was the BBC in the mid-'80s.
Lord love the BBC.
But the prosthetic work in that show was beautiful.
Yeah, except for that one.
Like the huge fat guy.
Yeah.
There was some really impressive stuff in that.
Computer animations.
Yeah, I haven't watched that in a long time. I have a hard time making myself go back to that because of the Trillian voice. Because it's gross.
She's annoying.
And is it the same voice from the radio show, or does it just sound a lot like her?
I think it's the same one. I'm not.
Well, that was a mistake because that's the worst thing about the radio show.
Yep.
We digress. Best chalkboard gag.
Sorry, because it's out of order of what I have.
Sorry.
Mine was Bart Bucks are not legal tender. That was mine.
Oh yeah, that one's good.
I will not carve gods.
It's funny when you say it out loud. I will finish what I...
Yeah, that was a good one.
That was almost mine, yeah.
I also like I will not squeak chalk. Did anybody have a good couch gag? Because this is another season with a lot of repeated ones, and some from previous seasons already, so there's not a lot of new ones, but...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I find I always struggle on couch gags, but I just put...
Well, we can just stop doing them if you want to, man.
No. I put the one where the family sits on Homer, because when he's just like...
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
I like the one where they all jump into the couch, and then their eyes peek out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's a good one.
Yeah, I did not get one.
Okay. MVP of the season. This is going to be interesting because this could go a few different ways, I think. Austin, I'm fascinated to see what character you choose. And the rule here is it can be anybody that's at least in, several episodes. I mean, it would be weird to pick somebody who's only in 2 or 3 episodes, I guess. But it does not have to be a Simpson family member. We both, I think, picked Burns last season.
Yes.
Mine was Marge last season with Burns as a close second.
Oh,
but yeah.
I know you listen to that, but I'm not expecting you to remember anything, and I keep forgetting that you actually... Thanks for watching that, by the way. I'm sorry, who'd you pick?
Oh, no, I just said I picked Marge last season.
Oh, I'm
Marge
sorry.
And
I
Burns.
thought we both picked Burns. I'm putting Burns in your mouth. I apologize.
But there you. No, use my
Burns.
second.
Who did you pick for this season?
So this season I got... I kind of struggled on who to pick. So I picked Homer because I felt like we were fully in just this is Homer now. Mm-hmm. There's no more of the kind of Walter Matthau stuff.
Walter
he's full just Walter Matthau. Yeah, he was gone. No more frosty chocolate milkshakes for Homer. I also thought Mo was great this season. Yeah. So he was my other one. Yeah.
Who'd you pick?
I put Mo down.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
And looking back, maybe he didn't do as much as I thought he did, but
yeah, but the stuff that's there is really memorable.
He did really jump out.
And even in episodes that aren't about him, if he's there, it's always memorable.
His scene was always big.
This is a big Homer season for me, so I couldn't help but put Homer right at the top. And then after that, it's probably Lisa. Just because my favorite episodes tended to revolve around her.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And we went from one Lisa episode each season till we get 2, specifically just with Lisa and Homer this season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can tell they definitely know that's a dynamic that works. And I think that ultimately is kind of the heart of the show, is their relationship, especially like moving forward. There's kind of like a thing you can track with them over a few seasons.
Yeah, and we've had, I think in the past, maybe I'm wrong, like kind of more father-son episodes, and this seemed like a bigger father-daughter season.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Let's go to, I don't know why I did this in this order, but let's do best guest character real quick. I had this written in a bizarre order. Who is yours? I didn't think there was a lot to pick from this time.
Oh, there was a lot of guests this season. Mine was Lillian Lumpkin, Beverly D'Angelo.
That's what I picked too. I guess I just mean like there's a lot of cameos and stuff, but were there as many like straight up guest stars, like a character that comes in and is a major player in the story?
Okay, let me look at my notes
Quite as
quickly.
many as there were in the second season.
I didn't really know where to draw the line between guest character, infrequent regular character,
Yeah.
and cameo.
Usually, I try to pick somebody. Yeah, no, it's sticky, but I want to separate it from some other things because you have the recurring characters that are like always in at least 5, 7, 10 episodes, and then you'll have like a one-shot, one-off character like Danny DeVito's character
Danny
or something,
DeVito or Lillian Lumpkin.
Yeah.
who was in an episode last season, but he's not major recurring. He's like a Q or something.
Not quite
He shows up
as
every
not
so
a
often.
standard like Fat Tony is going to be, or
Right.
Yeah,
Or he
'cause
might have
technically,
continued
like,
to come
Milhouse
every
is
now and
nice.
again if Danny DeVito wanted to keep doing it, but he could have been a Q kind of character, but he wasn't.
Yeah, and technically, like Phil Hartman and Miss Krabappel are all guest characters, but like don't really count that because they're basically just regular people on the show.
Yeah.
actor Lionel Hutz, and you might remember me from such movies.
He's in so
Well-
many episodes this season.
Lionel Hutz is my favorite character on the show. I love him.
Oh, actually, no.
Every time he pops up, I laugh out loud.
Actually,
Yeah.
you're thinking of the actor guy, not the lawyer guy. Lionel Hutz is the lawyer.
Lionel Hutz is the lawyer.
You're quoting
Troy McClure.
Troy McClure. Yeah, he's in a bunch of episodes this season. He's my favorite recurring character.
We get Troy McClure and Lionel Hutz in. I think they're both in Bart the Murderer, and it's very uncommon that you get both of them in an episode. It's normally one or the other.
Interesting.
He's too common for me to think of him as a guest character.
No, I wouldn't either.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure. Like Dr. Nick or something. Well, who did you write down though?
Lurleen.
Yeah. So that's unanimous. It's just a really, really good episode.
I mean, I would have watched a spin-off show about Lurleen.
Really?
She could have her own show. I'd watch that.
I was wondering what your thoughts on her would end up being. I didn't know if you'd like her or not.
She was an engaging character. I felt for her. She was pleasant enough to have on screen.
I think the most impressive thing is to make me buy that she would fall that hard for Homer of all people, and I completely bought that. And I really like that they're careful to not be like, this episode he's suddenly going to be like a ladies' man, because you even get to the bit where like right at the end when he says like my romantic life is flashing before my eyes, like they've not forgotten Homer, but you're buying that this woman just as an isolated case,
low enough self-esteem as Marge does.
Good call.
To find a spark with Homer, and I wouldn't need the spinoff to be her and Homer, but that was a character that just I was happy whenever she was on, and I usually don't feel that way about guest characters.
Yeah, the idea of her having her own show is a really good idea. I never would have thought of that, but that would totally work.
We should probably also mention Krusty's dad, specifically because they won an Emmy for that, or he specifically won an Emmy.
Really?
Yeah, they won 2 this year, which is Krusty's dad, that actor won an Emmy, and Miss Krabappel. She won an Emmy for Bart the Lover.
Wow. He's great.
Welcome.
Yeah, he comes back one more time. His character comes back and it doesn't have that voice, but...
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Okay.
I thought I wrote him down, but I didn't.
I forgot about him, honestly. I should have done that. I mean, he wouldn't have beaten Lurleen, but he's a really cool character, too.
Yeah.
And another character that you kind of feel for, and I love all the stuff with him and Bart and like the philosophizing back and forth, and then the thing that finally puts him over the top, where he's willing to rekindle his relationship with his son, is a quote from
Sammy
Davis. I just couldn't remember for a second who it was. Yeah, and like I bought all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that episode also goes to some Krusty Gets Busted places because Brad Bird is a co-director on it. So you get some of his like crazy face stuff that he does in that episode.
Yeah.
Specifically with Krusty, because apparently he loves Krusty so much that he will just go in and just animate one scene like anytime Krusty gets an episode, even if he's not the director.
I will complain that based on that episode, Krusty is too mean-spirited later.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Because he's just so likable, and you kind of feel for him in that episode, and then
he goes back to the jerkhole.
Yeah, they just make him, kind of a like straight up narcissist later, and I guess he sort of was that way before too. But I think they should have let him evolve a little bit after that.
Well, and Krusty with Bart in a way is kind of like Burns with Homer, just in the sense that they never remember them.
Yeah, that's a really good call.
Don't ring a bell.
Okay, let's do best episode real quick, and then we'll finally do our commentary. Well, best and worst, I guess. Austin, what is your favorite episode of the season?
I'm not a sports fan, but mine is Homer at Bat. I think that episode's wonderful, and all of those. I mean, we talked quite a bit about it, but every single one of those baseball players gets something really fun to do.
It is easily the most entertaining episode of the season, and is neck and neck for me for first place. What is yours, Geoff?
Some kind of tie between Flaming Moe and I Married Marge.
Oh, really?
Oh, interesting.
And I saw that, and I came into the beginning of that thinking, oh yeah, it's this one. It's going to be one of those flashbacky things, and I'm not going to like it. Some mixture of the 80s nostalgia and this crazy relationship Homer has, and when Homer storms into the nuclear plant demanding the job.
Yeah.
And if you don't like it, I can change.
I think the flashback stuff is really solid early on because they don't fall into prequelitis territory. Like nothing feels too retroactive. It doesn't feel too gimmicky or like self-referential or anything. Like it just feels like a lot of it feels like what would happen.
It feels sincere.
And exactly.
And it allows me to actually go there. But that and the Flaming Homer episode,
which is one of the big classic episodes, yeah.
I was pretty down about Danny DeVito's return. I think Danny DeVito was too, and I felt that.
Okay, sure.
But I didn't care for Lisa Goes to Washington.
Yeah.
That didn't work for me at all.
You're making a great case for it.
And
I just like a lot of the individual gags.
Partly from that, and partly just because in tone, it stuck out.
Yeah.
Like it really did not feel like any other Simpsons episode to me.
Yeah, it felt like a step backwards.
Fair.
It almost fits better in first season than anywhere else.
Yeah, I might have forgiven it more easily if that were a first season episode. Sure.
I do like Bart's hatred of vaudeville music. That whole thing was really funny to me. It's like he did this song already.
Yeah. The Mark Russell parody.
That was, or maybe it's not vaudeville. What is it? But that was really funny to me.
That was a real thing.
Ragtime, I guess.
That was Mark Russell. He did this special on PBS a few times every year of Washington themed satire.
Oh, I know what you're talking about now that you say that.
And impressively, I thought. But,
So mine was a tie between Flaming Moe and Homer at Bat. And I guess, I said that it's like, one of them was more serious and one of them is more entertaining, but I guess Flaming Moe is also for the comedy as much as anything. But I do like the relationship with Homer and Moe in that, and the way they kind of patch things together again at the end as typical guys. Like that whole thing is
the reconciliation felt so natural.
Okay, what's your worst episode, Austin?
I really struggled with this. Mine, I think, ultimately is going to be the auto show, and I think talking about it on here has made me be like, okay, that's probably the weakest one for me. Just because it's just kind of whatever. Like, you get this whole story, and the resolution to it is basically, you can win. Here you go.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of the episode. But I like every episode this season. Like, it's my weakest, but I still like things in that episode.
Yeah, there's great bits in all of it, but just as you know, a complete piece. Like, yeah, Auto Show was in there for me, and tied with that is Bart's friend falls in love. I thought it was also as whatever as the Auto Show was.
Yeah, one of the problems with the Auto Show episode was just that the first half of it is this whole other arc. And then you get the auto arc for the second half.
And that first arc was better and more
fun? The first half was better, and the second half needed more time for them to really do it well. So...
And the best part of that entire episode is just Homer singing Spanish Flea.
Yeah.
Forgot about that.
Summer Samba too.
Oh yeah.
There was a little Spanish Flea. So good.
I like how he's totally fine just hanging out in the parking lot.
Yeah, for the entire concert. And there's just like cops and stuff in the background.
We salute you, oh half-inflated lord.
Should I assume that Black Widower has won the poll and that's what we're going to commentary on real quick?
Yes, you probably can, but I will check it quickly.
Okay. That was by a landslide.
Reference anything from that this whole time.
Well, I'm glad that we haven't much because we're about to have to talk about it for 20 minutes. Yeah.
Yes, some episodes got a bit closer, but that is what it is.
Okay, cool. Well, folks, I guess I should apologize for how long we've run. Is it? Yeah, we're over the 3 hours. So anyway.
And there's a 4-way tie between number 2.
Oh wow, interesting.
Over 3 hours.
Okay, so that happened. All right. So let me go ahead and get this queued up. It's episode 20 of season 3, according to Disney Plus, and that's of course how we're all going to watch it. Is on that service. Hold on. No, stop! Stop! No!
21, but 20 on there.
That was loud. Sorry, what?
Said episode 21, but 20 on Disney Plus. Yeah.
Exactly. Let me just get a couple of audio settings figured out here, and then we will watch this episode together. And I'm sure it will go by lickety-split, because there's 3 of us.
Well, and a big thing to talk about with this episode is the coloring, and it's really beautiful.
Yeah. There's a couple. And there's a couple episodes where there's just a lot of depth. A field and stuff. I made some notes about like some episodes being more cinematic than others, but I didn't end up bringing that up. But anyway, let me 1 second. Let me turn Austin up just a little bit so that we can hear him through our headphones. Because Geoff, the way this is rigged up is I can't have both things going through the same audio place. You'll have to come forward just a little bit because that doesn't stretch. Sorry about that.
Come closer.
You got enough room to come even closer if you want to. Nope, not that way. That way. And then come forward, and then we'll just figure out the camera after you do that. I'm trying to get you closer to the microphone. There we go. Okay.
I keep talking to the microphone.
All right, everybody get the episode rigged up. Get ready to press play when I say now.
Oh, wait, actually, hold on. Just give me a second. I'll just work out my audio.
You don't have to stretch any farther. We're already past the 3 hours, Austin.
No, I just realized I was like, wait a minute. When I watched it last time, I turned the volume way down. So it's going to start in there's going to be like no volume, and changing the volume on it's going to pause the episode. Okay, I'm good.
Will it? Weird.
I think so, like on PlayStation, because you got to bring up the menu because it's on a headset.
That sounds like a personal problem.
Yeah, I have
Maybe
a lot of
it's your
personal
problem.
problems.
Hold on.
There was a little Spanish flea.
Yeah, you guys just keep doing that. That's great.
Baby, come back.
Well, Mr. Burns had done it. The power plant had won it.
I love that.
Roger Clemens clucking all the while.
Like social's tragic illness made a smile.
Oh yeah, we haven't talked about the sister's obsession with MacGyver yet. That's gonna come up.
Ooh.
All right, here we go. Everybody, please press play.
So cruel.
Are you ready? Because I have an issue with that with this episode that I'll want to bring up when we get there. Austin, are you ready?
I'm good.
Okay, everybody, please press play right now. Oh no, it's going through the wrong thing. Hold on.
Oh, do we have to start over?
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay.
Oh, I don't know why I'm not getting audio here. Hold on.
Funny noises are not funny.
Very true, Bart.
Yeah, Geoff, I don't know if we're actually going to get audio here, but we can at least watch this episode. Oh, wait, are you hearing it?
I'm hearing it.
Oh, good. I was not plugged in this whole time. Shut up, Austin.
That is a big issue.
Jeff's over here humming and stuff. I'm like, well, I mean, we all know the intro.
Da, 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 da.
I noticed.
Do you like the
watching
Green
this
Day
all,
thing?
that Lisa's solo isn't the same every episode.
No, it's not. But I didn't think that started happening until later, and they're already doing that this season, which is pretty great.
Wish I had paid more attention.
And of course, we still have some episodes where we don't do the entire intro, and some where we do, but we do a lot more of the full intro this season than we did last season. It was cut off a lot more often into.
Yeah, because the big long intro is just to fill time.
Yes. So I love this bit at the beginning because they're basically just coming out and calling out dinosaurs for ripping them off, and it's awesome.
Yeah. They have a baby too.
It's like they saw our lives and put it right up on screen. It's so good.
Which is funny because Dinosaurs is also on Disney Plus.
Yes, it's great. But yeah,
I'd forgotten that show existed.
So did everybody till it was on Disney Plus, and then suddenly I saw all these videos reviewing it. Well, that's creepy. That's a thing we do a lot this season, the daydream thing.
There's a lot of listing jokes and montages this season. Where it'll just be like a string of jokes and like just like that.
I think years later those kinds of cutaways take over too much and we stop telling stories kind of because we rely on that too much. But when it's part of the narrative,
McFarlaning.
Yeah, but when it actually gets us in the characters' heads and either reveals something or is just really funny but doesn't stop the episode, I love it. It's fine.
Well, one of the best ones this season is Gold Homer.
Quite understandable.
Yeah, giant gold Homer. So I guess every time we have a Sideshow Bob episode, it's going to win the poll, right? Because this is now the second time this has happened.
Seems like it. So who knows what we'll get next season, but 5 and 6 are a given.
I mean, I like Kelsey Grammer just like the next person.
At least 5 and 6, I think, are the two best Sideshow Bob episodes. So
First two noble truths of the Buddha.
Okay, does the season that has Homer in space have a Sideshow Bob episode? Because I'll be very surprised if that episode doesn't win that poll.
That's the big famous Sideshow Bob episode. That's Cape Fear.
Oh, okay.
That's where you get like the rake joke and stuff.
Okay, but don't you think it could go either way on that? Because the chip eating thing is so well known, like.
Maybe, but just by how it's gone so far, it'll probably be Sideshow Bob.
Okay, so this is one of my two big questions about this episode. Do you know what I'm going to say?
No, but I got one.
Well, he's going to be handed his Emmy in prison, and then later he's not allowed to have it.
Yeah.
So if he's not allowed to have it, who handed it to him in prison?
Prison regulations are not exactly consistent.
Apparently not, but there's a whole cart full of trophies?
And it's a person in a tuxedo.
All sorts of awards are won by criminals.
Yeah, it's somebody in the cell. I don't understand. That's one of my favorite lines. Best film to video transfer. The highlight of the evening. So good. This is a nice setup for later. He's going to have one of these license plates on his car at the end. It's that one, the I Hate Bart one.
I also think it's interesting we don't just go straight to him going after Bart.
Chicken.
Like
Me
we built
too. That. Especially given, yeah, I had that thought too. Especially given that he's talking about exactly what he would do if he wanted to do that, and you're like, why is that not your main motivation? Maybe his plan was get her fortune and then kill Bart.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting, and it's not something I hear people talk about a lot, which is like every Sideshow Bob episode for a while is very different. And it's not just him going after Bart like it later on becomes.
Yeah, they really string us along pretty far.
Blessed Sim says he probably was allowed to have it, but probably lost that privilege. I don't know about that.
They maybe decided that after they shot him up with Haldol.
Yeah, maybe. That's weird.
Security waiting to fly off.
Steven, I was going to mention that too. He says, I do like the setup of the Republican there. He mentions how hard it is for a conservative Republican in prison, and then he sets up the Democrats line. Yeah, just really nice writing there.
Yeah, and that'll
it's
set
really
up an
funny
entire
at the end
episode with
when the Democrats are in office. Yeah, it's great. Sorry, what were you saying?
So that sets up the season 6 episode with him, where he runs for mayor, which is my favorite Sideshow Bob episode.
I forgot all about that. I've only seen that once, probably.
And they love doing the prisoner 24601 joke too.
Yeah, good call. That's another nice bit of continuity if I'm remembering it correctly. I'm pretty sure the last time we saw Snake, he went to prison, and now he's in prison.
I think so, because it would have been separate vocations.
Right, when Bart has him arrested.
Yeah.
And he's been out, on the streets in a couple of episodes before this, so might be a happy accident they weren't even thinking about it, but it looks like it lines
Probably.
up, so that's cool. The murder mystery here is with all the clues
Those flowery lines
in the way it's telegraphed is set up even better than the mystery in his first episode.
Yeah.
There are some things we've even already established that are going to matter later. It's neat.
Dramatic pose.
Buzzed Sim, I'll take jokes children won't understand for 500, please. I mean, it's not a show for kids.
Yeah.
The happy
I love this musical bit too.
Oh, unless you mean just something that he did when he was on TV. I'm not sure what he was referencing, but...
Well, I assumed he meant that was around like the conjugal visit joke, but I'm not sure when he put that.
Yeah, the trailer's rocking.
I didn't notice the sludge coming from the power plant there. They try to do that as often as humanly possible. I love that Homer works at the place. That expression is insane. I love that Homer works at the place that has most ruined this town.
Here's another foot moment.
Yes. And
Yep.
right now, he's doing a really good job of pretending like he's fine with that and enjoys that, because as soon as we know for sure that he wants to kill her, then he's not even trying anymore.
Yep.
And which is a problem I have with this, and we'll get there. This telethon is the silliest, most insane telethon. It's and I relate to this really hard, Geoff, because I have a motion sickness issue, and I wish that somebody would give me money because I get motion sickness. That'd be great.
I had a follow-up to that, and I'm going to keep it to myself.
Oh, I'm sorry, Geoff.
on second thought.
Oh, it was, I thought it was because you just couldn't get it in. Sorry.
Goomba! Crustula.
Steven says they do their best to get Kelsey Grammer to sing in every episode, and we are grateful for it. Well, yes, indeed.
He really has a fine voice.
Yes, they do. They always get the most out of Kelsey Grammer, that's for sure.
This is the best work he ever did.
That's not fair.
I mean, in his whole Sideshow Bob career.
Oh, I thought you meant Sideshow Bob is the best thing that Kelsey Grammer ever did. I'm
Yes.
like, I'm a fan of Frasier. That's not fair.
Yeah, I mean, it is one of his most well-known roles.
Absolutely.
Like, if it's not number one, it's in there.
I haven't really watched a lot of Frasier.
I've not seen some of the other stuff he's done. I mean, obviously, Beast and X-Men and stuff like that, but like,
Yeah. Well,
he
it's
had a
like
show-
this Transformers 4, I think.
he had a drama for a while called Boss or The Boss or something, but I've never seen that.
Goodness sake, look!
I like it when after this when he
Brother,
says
it ain't
he
ketchup.
makes a really good case. Munson Sim, back in the days when people had to watch telethons because nothing else was on.
Yep.
That's a good line too.
Yeah.
The 8 out of $10 they gave him when he left prison.
I bought stock in Maze Company.
I saw something else recently that had a gag about that, about being given like hardly
Yeah.
any money when you leave prison. Austin, do they stay consistent with that being Sideshow Bob's real name?
Yes.
What, Bob Terwilliger?
Yeah.
Yep. And they'll bring on some Frasier actors as his family later on, too.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's fun. What is with the pyramid lamp? Okay, so this is my big issue with this episode. Why doesn't he try harder to pretend like he likes MacGyver?
Yeah.
Because MacGyver is that bad.
Yeah, that's not how it plays though. Like
No,
it really plays like the episode, and this isn't what's happening, I'm sure, but it almost plays like the episode hasn't decided what his plan is yet, and then a little later it's gonna go, oh, he wants to kill her, but like it's just doing this to throw us off so we won't know, and it's cheating. That's the big thing I don't care for with this episode.
It feels to me like all those manufactured forced conflict.
Yeah. And just to pad the episode out. I mean, there's so little of that in The Simpsons, but this feels like a padded out episode to me because of that.
If you could pretend to enjoy filing the corns off of Patty's foot,
That's it.
you can sit through an episode of MacGyver.
And yeah, like at the point where you realize it's a deal breaker, how do you not say, oh yeah, she says, I just need you to say you like MacGyver. He would at that point say, okay, fine, I like MacGyver, and that would be enough for her, and then they move on. But he's risking the marriage happening so that he can
His
get the
whole
money
plan
and in the position to
falls
kill her.
apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
because of
Bust
that.
Sim says it's because it offends his high culture sensibilities. But I can see what you're saying. Like,
So
what?
would the feet smell and everything. How does he not go, the lamp is a deal breaker? Like, you could say this about anything else with this woman. I do not buy the MacGyver thing.
Oregon playing the wedding march. I could have been that flower girl. I do.
Daniel Davis says you need drama. Yeah, but it doesn't have to be manufactured like that. Like,
I don't need drama if it's going to be that clumsy.
that's all I'm saying. I just think the rest of the writing is better than that, and it's kind of cheating.
I'd rather something risk being boring by not having enough conflict than having fake shoehorned sloppy conflict.
This is a weird joke, by the way.
Yeah. I can't tell that one.
And this is more nitpicky than what I just said, but I also think that it would be pretty suspicious that she marries an ex-con and then her apartment blows up immediately after she gets married. I would think that that there would be an investigation and people would not buy that she wasn't murdered. Yeah. Like,
Chief Wiggum is the police chief, though. So
well,
that's fair. Yeah, but are they in town when they go on their honeymoon? Is that Best Western? No, it must be because
Wiggum is the one
he's the cop that shows up. Yeah, I like that he leaves his gun there. That's really funny. Yeah, and in front of children.
Yeah, and Wiggum's still like a regular police chief in season 2. In season 3, he's finally Wiggum.
Buzz the Sim says, I think that's the joke, though. He can take so much at this point, but he, for whatever reason, can't take that. I don't know, man. They're not making me buy it. Like, I get that that's the point, but
I hate Bart.
Yeah.
Talk about an evil laugh face.
Yeah, we get really over the top with his face. Well, that's horrifying.
Yeah. Econo VHS.
The Rolling Rock is great.
Yeah, I wish I had one of those.
I'm reminded of Sonic levels.
Yeah. Luggage monkey.
I love the way he says Dennis. Like, that's the most lowbrow name a person could possibly call their kid. See, I think Sideshow Bob's downfall should just be talking to himself. Like, if only he would just stop saying his plans out loud.
Oh, they're careful to always show that her legs are hairy.
Yeah, I mean, there's a part of me that wishes they would forget once, because that's gross. But
it's what inspired the Flaming Homer.
That's, I think, Bob's best line of this episode. Even murder has its downside. It's so good.
Okay, this is a scene that...
What are you gonna say?
This is a scene that does not work for me.
Yeah. It's funny, but I'm just not... I don't know. I'm not getting... Again, why he's risking stuff. Like, he clearly is capable of not doing this.
Well, it's a joke that's done better next time he shows up with the Die Bart Die. Oh, it's German for the Bart the.
It's right up there with How to Cook for 40 Humans.
Is the issue
exactly.
that it goes too far, Geoff? Where, like, at the end of it, then he reverses it, and, like, he says something in the language, and then says the English, and the English is scary? Like...
Well, no, because it starts dumb. It doesn't get smarter.
Yeah.
MacGyver.
But the way Bart puts this all together is really smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, his explanation is great. And it's the only way Wiggum will learn.
Yeah, I love that.
Steven, anytime his voice gets lower and is sinister, it's a fun bit of acting. Oh yeah, that's why you get Grammer for this role, absolutely.
Yeah, like I said, they always get the most out of him. He's always great.
You're having such a lovely...
RJ Godzilla says, Bart having to explain to Homer Bob's plan is great. Yes, that whole thing is really funny. He was like, I tried to explain it to Homer 4 times, and then I went to Mom, and then we actually went and did something.
The lighting in this scene's great.
It's awesome. And I also really like the explanation for why the room explodes.
My best laid plans of
which is wonderfully well set up earlier. Like, that might have seemed like, again, too easy just for a joke, but it's set up great earlier when he when he sets his gun down in front of children. Yeah. No, it's the only way I'll learn.
I love that line.
Austin, I feel like they always handle these kinds of mystery episodes really well. Yeah. This is all precursor to Who Shot Mr. Burns, right?
Oh, of course.
Oh, speaking of that, there are a couple of references to Who Shot JR in this season, which is really interesting retroactively, knowing that they're going to do a parody of it.
It was one of the biggest TV show episodes of all time.
Yeah.
At the time.
And this is right around
science made very simple.
This is right around the same time that TNG is going to do the same thing with Best of Both Worlds.
Oh, right. Wow.
Mm-hmm. In fact, that would have been the season before or this season.
If only that had been the one with Kelsey Grammer in it.
Yeah, but he's only in 30 seconds of one episode.
That's true.
And I mean, he's great in the 30 seconds he's in, but
again and again.
He got caught in a causality. Yeah, but you don't see him over and over again.
Oh, right.
He's just right at the very end. He's the reveal of who the captain was of that ship that was in the causality loop.
Right.
Captain Bozeman of the Bateson of the USS Bozeman. That face. It's genius because of the hair. That's why it works.
He never lost his mistrust. The I left the gas on ending.
We're kind of just parroting typical TV in general there, right? Typical murder mystery stuff, typical drama stuff, typical
Kelsey Grammer
comedy stuff. Yeah, sure. Well, guys, thanks everybody so much for hanging in with us for as long as this ended up being.
Welcome to KelseyGrammarly.com.
Grammarly. Okay, so that happened. Anything else we need to make sure that we bring up before we adjourn this evening? Were there any episodes that really should have been mentioned that we did not bring up? Because I think we touched on about everything.
Let's see. We'll have it open. I like with Dog of Death, they're still paying attention to the money issues of the family, and having to draw attention to families that don't budget having a sick dog. I think that works really well.
Yeah, and I also like the sincerity of that episode where Bart is just assuming that they'll give the dog the surgery. Mm-hmm. That whole thing plays really sincere.
Can't help noticing we're driving away from.
Yeah.
Let me tell you all about doggy heaven. There's a bunch of lassies there. There's also doggy hell. There's the mean lassie there, the one who mauled Timmy.
The first annual Montgomery Burns Award for Outstanding Achievement in the Field of Excellence.
Oh yeah, that's great. And then it gets a song and everything. Yeah. I just thought of this. Real quick, I had a criticism about the episode where I'm trying to remember. It's the Lurleen episode. The end of that, when Homer sells the contract for $50, that's too easy, right?
Yeah.
We did that just so that at the end of an episode he wouldn't be rich, because there's no other way to write that where he won't have too much money at the end of that episode. there's no good reason whatsoever he shouldn't have haggled or given that guy an offer or something. I get that he's an idiot, but still, it's like, we got to wrap this up in a minute and a half or less, or like, 30 seconds.
So the end of the auto show. Oh, let's go watch some TV. Why? What's on? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's all those scummy producers.
I don't know why you're bringing that up right now, but sure, yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, the scummy Hollywood producers bit at the end of one episode's great, and then it just immediately goes to the credits, and it's like, the producers.
You know who the real criminals are.
Yeah, they do a lot of that, making fun of the industry they're in.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think that's about everything I've got.
Yeah, looking through the episodes, I think so.
We were pretty thorough, I think. Well, Geoff, I hope you had a good time. I'm sorry for keeping you so late.
Great time. It's great.
Yeah, no, it was great talking to you guys about a wonderful show.
This one was certainly worth giving this kind of time and weight to. I know season 3 is a lot of people's favorite, or way up there. I'm excited to get to 4 because I'm sure there are some episodes in there I don't know.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah, and I think season 4 is basically this but tighter. Where I think like every episode, except for I already know what my weakest episode will be because we get our first clip show.
Oh no, I hate that.
Oh yeah.
That's unfortunate.
Into each life some rain must fall.
And it's not a clip show where they're making fun of clip shows like Powerpuff Girls, because their clip show is one of their best episodes.
No, it's just, hey, remember when we did this? Here it is.
Well, it certainly was an amusing episode.
Of
our lives.
Remember when we were sitting in a closet remembering stuff?
Oh, the closet thing reminds me. The I Married Marge episode,
Yeah.
I think, is the best of the Smithers Burns, like, who was that jokes? Where he's like, that was Homer Simpson,
Yes.
sir. He, like, failed the interview, and then he got lost in a closet on the way out.
And then he goes,
Simpson, hey?
That was one of the only things in that is like a retroactive prequel gag, but it works really well. Where he goes, "I'll remember that name." That's how that's done.
Yeah.
Like that. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, folks, I am technically on hiatus right now, and I know I came back from hiatus after just a couple of days to do a 3.5 hour video, but we had planned on doing this a few days ago and could not get to it until now.
Hiatus gonna hiatus.
So I can't promise when the next one's coming out. Austin and I are, like I said, hoping to do a video game one before we get to season 4. So we're gonna, unless we end up doing it after 4, I mean, we can talk about it, Austin. But the plan was to
I'm good with whatever.
sandwiches it in between 3 and 4. And again, my wife's about to deliver twins. I don't know how much time I'm gonna have to get to anything. I don't know if I'm doing any reviews on things like Black Widow and Loki and stuff. So I'm playing everything by ear right now, guys. But again, technically on hiatus. Could be a few months, could be a couple of months. I don't know
Make
yet.
it a double feature.
But anyway, so I don't know what that means. But we will be back as soon as we can. And in the meantime, thanks for watching, everybody. We really appreciate it, and I hope you had a good time. We certainly did. Geoff, do you have any final words that you want to leave us off with?
Septuagenarian.
Oh, yeah. He had a final word. All right, folks.
That ought to cover it.
Yeah, sure. That about sums it up. Anyway, there wasn't a lot of Grandpa this season. He had like a whole spotlight last season.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, he was just he played video games. He got down on the floor for that.
His shining moment this year.
Well, he did that, and he had that episode where he was like, "The dog's dead," and then everybody's like, "Remember that?" And then everybody's like, "No, the dog's not dead." And he's like, "Oh, right. You just assume the old man is wrong. He says the dog's dead. He must be alive." Then he goes, "I want to change the subject now. I'm going home." And he just leaves. Yeah. Everything about that scene is hysterical.
That's one of my favorite Grandpa bits.
It's funny because
I'm tired of this conversation. Let's talk about something else. I'm going home.
It's funny because it's true.
Well observed.
That's what the mobsters said. Yeah, the itchy and scratchy. I'm saying it's funny because it's true.
What's so true?
All right, we'll see you next time, folks. I was Captain Logan. That was Austin, the Day Ghost.
Ooh.
And the Geoff. Bye, everybody.